Hello team, and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video, which is not just an ATP Geopolitics video. Of course, it's a Greg Terry video, and I don't know if Darren's co-streaming his, but Prof Gerdes explains. We have the triumvirate of I was going to say legends, but that's so self-aggrandizing. No, we have the triumvirate of people who are working to make the world a better place in terms of helping out Ukraine. And that's what tonight's all about. But we're going to talk about an awful lot of stuff, I think. But anyway, that's enough from me. Welcome to my team, and welcome. Thank you, Greg and Darren, for coming on.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for letting us be here. I'm glad you didn't use the term troika. That would have been far worse.
Yeah, well, I actually thought he was going to drop Father, Son, and Holy Spirit on us, but that's, typically not out in the Jupiter range for him.
I'm so outnumbered tonight. Come on, I'm fighting a secular battle here in the top left-hand corner.
But in all seriousness, thank you, Johnny, for hosting tonight, and I'm excited. I'm really pumped. Prof Gerdes is in here, and yeah. I hope people, of course, we are. A part of the stream tonight will be about the fundraiser that is going well, and I do have a updated number for everybody. In fact, I have not yet even told it to Dr. Gerdes or Johnny, so it'd be a surprise for them. Also have a message from Pete regarding that, but it's just an honor for me to be here with you two guys, so thank you tonight.
It's really cool. So thanks. Just before we start, and this is very much a British thing, British and Irish thing, but can I just say it is St. Patrick's Day, and to all my Irish friends, you are friends no longer. You're not welcome here. I'm having a commiseratory drink of Doom Bar in my weirdly Austrian big jug here, and it's the Six Nations Championship that just finished this weekend, and Ireland won it again. And quite frankly, that's enough to make me drown my sorrows. No, I'm only joking. My Irish fellows, you're welcome here, of course. Cheers.
I'm having, I can translate this for you. I'm having maximum taste with no sugar, Pepsi.
Can I just say, having driven around with your man Greg for a period of time in Ukraine, the man puts back some serious Pepsi. So that's no surprise to see that there. So we are going to talk about, I guess, quite a few things tonight. I want to look at the map that JR's done. I want to talk about what's going on in the north of Ukraine. Of course, it's not just me. You guys can decide what you guys want to talk about. But I was thinking, talk about what's going on in the north of Ukraine and in the south of Russia. Also, we've got Putin is looking close, but looking at some of the exit polls, he might just get in as the new president of Russia. So we'll talk about that.
He's eking it out.
Yeah, it's a close one.
Returns were different.
And it's just which Putin is going to be president. That's the question. And then I thought, obviously, we're going to thread in and out of, we'll weave and wend our way through this with talk about fundraising and what we're all doing together to raise funds for the armored medical vehicles. And JR, who does my mapping, this is majorly JR's a part of this, because when we did this before and we did a previous fundraiser, JR matched drone funding and we raised an absolute bucket load of money. It was quite outstanding and I was really proud of the community. And he's going to do that again today. So just right at the beginning, I'm going to say, look, if individual people can raise $300 donation just as a one-off, he will match a $300 donation. He will possibly do two of them. So he will match $600 worth of his own money, which is absolutely outstanding. He's such a, he helps me as a channel, just unbelievable. The mapping is all JR at the moment because I'm too busy to be able to do it. And so the guy's amazing and I'm getting a bit emotional already. But anyway, so that is what's going to happen. Where should we go to first, guys?
Thank you, JR.
Yeah, thanks. We do appreciate that. This is you were just showing the micro community with a team within the team, and this is a team of teams in order to be able to have some kind of effect in Ukraine. So thank you to JR, all your moderators, anybody who supported Greg, anybody who's listened to my channel. We have to recognize that none of us are doing this alone, and if we think that way, we're stupid.
Yeah.
So.
And just thanks already, to Kevin Force, who's a great supporter of the channel. What I'm going to ask, though, is if people are giving to the charity, to our charitable affairs, with regard to particularly the armored vehicles, please do it straight directly to gregterry.org, to the link that I'll put in, or one of the links, because there are several you can use, but go to gregterry.org. That's far more efficient than giving it to me for me to then give to Greg, because people take cuts out of that. So please do it directly to the link I'll put in.
Okay, so is JR's challenge for during the stream?
Yes, it is, as far as I understand it. But I'll be speaking to him on the back channels.
Okay, let me make a phone call while y'all get going. I'll get some guys in PA watching this.
Awesome.
So while he's making a phone call, let me mention two things, Johnny. One, and I mentioned this to you in the Q&A that you dropped in on yesterday. But one, I put this out on my community tab, and I said, "Hey, who are the YouTube streamers that you think are most accurate?" And Jake Bro was the runaway leader, but the complimentary things that they said about you were just, they'd curl your hair. And they were just, they said great things about you. He's my go-to guy. His analysis is, I guess, JR should get the credit for this, because you rely on his work and the analysis that you do. Like, everybody was very complimentary of you. So that's the first thing. Second, I watched the stream when you were talking about the U.S. system and how this worked, and trying to unpack the two different resolutions moving forward to try to force the speaker's hands. The only thing you got wrong, and I did my dissertation on the U.S. Constitution, was the number of congressmen. But that's okay. If that's all you get wrong, that's
yeah, so I'm never quite sure. So I always fudge that, because it changes. It's not always the same. It's like 100 senators.
100 senators is always the same, and then it's the number of representatives. So but that's it. Like everything else, I don't know that I could explain the British system as well as you explained the U.S. system. So well done. While we're on that thing, I don't know what you think is going to happen with that, but I don't think either of those are going to make it happen or push through, but I think they can push Mike Johnson to actually take a step so he doesn't look weak. That's my hope, at least.
Yeah, so there's an interesting thing to say about this. So I was listening to Tochny's very good analysis of this, and I advise everyone to go and watch it, particularly the second half of it. And what's interesting about the discharge petitions, we won't go into exactly what they are, it'd take too long, but most of you have already had it explained to you. That actually, so you physically need to go and sign. So if you're a representative, you actually have to go and find a clipboard and sign your name to it. It's kind of old school. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, and given that it kind of closed on Friday to be able to do that, there is only, I think, 177 on there at the moment, and they need 218. But there are people who, Democrats mainly, well, exclusively at the moment, but there are Democrats who have not signed it because they just weren't in Washington and they weren't able to sign it over the 2 days that it was open. So there is a belief that on Monday, when it opens, there will be maybe a flurry of signatures. The big question is whether they will get any Republicans on there, and it might be a bit of a snowball. If there are a few Republicans to go on, then it gives permission to other Republicans to do so, and it is crossing the floor. But if there are Republicans who feel strongly, of course there are, about Ukraine, and it's really a question of do I cross Trump? I mean, effectively, do I cross Trump and the MAGA Republican caucus to sign that? Is my feeling for Ukraine strong enough to do that? So we'll see. I mean, you might call it unlikely, but it could happen.
Yeah, remember the speaker, the majority leader, the whip, they can all make life pretty miserable for you. Take away your committee assignments or move you to some terrible committee or something along these lines. So to cross is a really tough thing to do. But there's enough of them that if they would do that, they could make this work. And then there's the other one, and the Democrats don't want to cross that.
Yes, yeah, because so you've got the two petitions. Yeah, just to remind people, you've got a Democrat-led petition, which is basically taking the Senate bill for $60 billion worth of Ukraine aid, but taking a Senate bill which also has the other stuff on it, and just passing it as is. Then you've got a Republican discharge petition, which has a little bit of a poison pill in there, so that it's a little bit more distasteful for the Democrats to take on board. And it would also be longer because it then has to go back to be ratified. And so actually the preferable one, if you're just interested in Ukraine aid, the preferable one is the Democrat one, because it's just what's already been agreed by the Senate.
But you know, either way, I mean, I would take any of these at this point. Just get something working at this point. Is Greg back? Are you still calling?
Yeah, I'm back, guys. And so our staff is watching there in Pennsylvania, and I told them to keep an eye on the PayPal link and on the direct link. And if people donate via that direct link, because I'm already seeing other people have donated other ways. Adrian with the donation to get it, he said, to get it kicked off, just kicked in another 50. Our guys are watching it right now. We're doing everything real time. It's 9:42 p.m. here in Ukraine and 3:42 there in Pennsylvania. Dr. Gertis on the same time zone, and Johnny is at 7:42. So we're on top of it.
And one more thing to say as well, if you're giving directly to, say, and the links are in the description below to I presume both the channels, but if you are doing so, giving directly to blwc@gmail.com, is that right?
So listen, let's make it simple. Make it simple.
I was just going to say, put the amount in the live chat. If you have done that, because we want to know, we want to just tot up. JR wants to know.
Our guys are watching it. They're seeing it real time to make it easier on all of us. But I want you to know the easiest way. Let me give you this link, Johnny, and let me give you this link here. There. So Paul Gude Deberich just put it in the chat, and I'm putting it in the chat. So if people go there, they have the option of the PayPal. Just click the link. It'll do it for you. And it's to our 501c3 nonprofit. And then the other one is a direct link also. So either way, which is more comfortable. And our guys are watching both right now. So we're good to go.
That's brilliant. And just to say that the JR is going to match any single $300 donation. And I think we might have already got that. Let's just thank you for this. Just you say something else, Greg, for the time being.
Yeah. And I did, Jompy, that came across as well. And I saw your message attached to that for Pete, and it will go to that. Absolutely. So
I just want to say, I think JR is going to have to be out of pocket a little bit, because we have certainly the first official one, and there may even be more. So that's so very many thanks to Adrian for these Swiss francs. That's really, really kind of you. There's 300 Swiss francs, which is there or thereabouts, and I think that's fantastic. And I think that means that JL will match that. So already we're off to a flying start. That's awesome. Really, really cool. Sorry, Greg.
No, perfect. And actually, we have a Ukrainian from Poltava watching, who's actually in my hometown there. So that's Elena Vlesluk. So that's awesome. Now, so this is going to be good. Anything coming in, yes, everything's going for the armored vehicles, guys. Everything for the armored vehicles. How long is this valid for? I think this challenge is for the length of our stream tonight. And we're doing great, guys. We're doing great. Keep rolling. Thank you. We're going to give you numbers in just a few minutes. Whenever Johnny's in charge, okay. Whenever he says.
Never a good idea. Well, I mean, yeah. So JL's got enough to match two $300 donations. I don't know. Please let us in the live chat if you have given a $300 donation that's not through me. So please don't do it through me. Do it as mentioned to all those other links. But
Melanie Reed will match. Melanie Reed in my chat, Johnny, will match $200 donation.
Wow! So we've got two matches.
50 through PayPal.
There you go.
It's going to roll. I guess I need to rely on Johnny and Dr. Gertis' expertise. Do you want to say where we're at now, and then we can talk about some Ukraine stuff? How do you guys want to do this?
Yep. So what? As in, it was say where we're at in terms of donations that have already taken place to the armored vehicles?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
that's good.
let's do that. Let's do that, and then we'll kind of go away and just be so thankful for people's generosity. David L, on your channel there, 300 given to the foundation or to our nonprofit. Thank you. Guys, you guys are amazing. So Dr. Gertis, you lay the groundwork. We started this less than 7 days ago.
Mm-hmm. So this is just the next phase from I had this out at Christmas, and then that's when we started working with this, and so I just put it back on the other day. So yeah, we wanted to make sure that we were doing what was needed, and that's where we started making sure, like mine detectors and things along, or not mine detectors, metal detectors that
mine detectors
do that, and then we started thinking even bigger. And as we started thinking bigger, different pieces came into place. Some large donors came online and said, "Hey, look, we want to work with you," because they're like, one of them was saying like, "Look, I can't wait any longer. How long is this going to be until we can actually get this going?" Like they want to help. They desperately want to help. And so we're like, hold on, we're almost there. And we had these things lined up, and then they were doing the due diligence. Came back out about a week ago, started, and we were off to the races. And we were looking at $200,000. We had 80,000 coming right out of the gate, and then we just within days we're up another 10, up another 10, up another. I mean, so we're moving right along. Where are we right now, Greg?
So with less than 7 days, I did get a report in from Pastor Kent and our team there earlier today. And yeah, Jompy, I got that for this project done. We were at 2 donors, took us to 80,000, and then we initiated the project because we wanted to. Okay, so if we roll this project out, it's going to happen. Period. We believe in these people in these communities. It's going to happen. That's why we waited. And Dr. Gertis said, okay, I think it's time to pull the trigger on this. So we did. So that was 80,000, basically where we started. And in less than 7 days, we are at $133,000.
Pretty good.
$53,000 have come in less than a week. And we're going to smash through that tonight. With that said, this is the exact vehicles needed, plus this $200,000 for this project is the 3 armored snatches, but not just that. This is, PK has calculated everything, guys. I mean, export fees, the documents to get it legally out of UK and to get it transported we're using a third-party company, so we do not have to deal with any of the border issues in case they arise. We're using a third party that does this all the time. Additionally, more good news today. We needed to provide a contact person address connected to our organization here that could be the receiver of these 3 vehicles. And then when I get back from Ukraine, we get all this done. It's going to take, we now can make the down payment because we're 50% raised, but then we'll pay it in full. And I will be coming back and we will be driving these to the front line.
Yeah, let's talk about the vehicles themselves so that people understand, because some of the
let me finish one thing.
Go ahead,
Dr. Gertis. So we today made the agreement when I was in a meeting earlier today with an organization that is partners with us that will be receiving into a secured place, have experience in that. Let's say, for example, Zhenya and I could not be in Lviv at the very moment we need to be there. These people will be authorized to get the vehicles there and put them into their secure parking lot. So we're done, guys. We're ready to do this. Plus the 200,000 includes the upgrades for anti-drone detectors, night vision, winches, all of the things to make these vehicles the golden hero rescue machines on the front lines there. So it's calculated even driving them all the way to the east and filling the tank up, and then we leave them with the guys. It's a complete project.
And just to let people know, Snatch Land Rovers, they're not like, it's not an APC, right? This is not going to withstand like an anti-tank guided missile. So you got to understand what's going out here. This is something that will really, really help medics who are driving around trying to save people on or near the front line. And you know, they're kitted out with Kevlar, and they're not going to withstand everything, but they're going to give so much more protection to those who are driving them.
The ones we're actually getting don't even look like that at all. I mean, they're kitted out with all the window protections, the bulletproof glass, the full body armor, plus the Kevlar in the back where the medical units are working. And the great thing, this is the exact vehicle that the guys are requesting, because Johnny, you've been there. A lot of those frontline areas, especially in the east, have these little narrow lanes where these medics are trying to get to them and extract wounded soldiers. So they are they're the right deal. So thank you.
Absolutely.
So
just to carry on.
No, just with that said, and then I'll listen to you two legends roll, and I'll chirp in every once in a while. Let's play the video from Pete. Everybody just listen to this. I was talking to Pete just a few minutes ago, and I said, dude, just send me something. Send me something. We're doing a big stream tonight. Send me something. So
I'll play that video, and just to let you know, I mean, even since this has happened, since JR's totted them up, there's more that's come in, but we're already up to like $1,750, and we haven't even started the video properly yet. So it's pretty amazing. Anyway, let's do exactly what you've asked, which is we'll try and add.
Dearest Greg, Dr. Gerdes, Zhenya, and Johnny Pierce. My goodness, my gracious, Greg has just informed me of the phenomenal state of your awe-inspiring, your shockingly wonderful campaign for the Land Rover Snatch fundraiser. I'm absolutely blown away. I'm sitting outside here by the fire meditating. We're on our way to the front. I'm going on foot patrol. Can you believe that? I'm going on foot patrol as a medic, because we can't drive in and out. We have to walk out the wounded. Can you imagine PK sitting back? I mean, this is what we do. We've done so many Kazovacs. It's too hot to go in there. It's too hot to drive. They do drive occasionally. Sometimes somebody drives in, and it's every 2 or 3 days to drive out a wounded. Literally keeping the boys alive on the front lines until a vehicle can get in or out. And I'm talking about under the cover of cloud or fog, when there are no eyes in the sky, or we walk them out. Therefore, these Land Rover snatches are unbelievably important to us. So our hands are tied until we can either get massive anti-drone cover, which takes time, or the Land Rover snatches. We all know which option I prefer is the snatch. I'm going to try very hard to get onto your stream tonight. We are just about to leave. I want to say thank you once again to Johnny. Welcome back, Johnny. You're an incredible asset to Ukraine. All of you are. Dr. Gerdes, Zhenya, Greg. Your home, by the way. Greg, Zhenya, Dr. Gerdes, Johnny, everybody. Your home is waiting for you down here where I am. As you boys know, as you legends know, I've rented a house. PK has rented a house for our volunteer medics and for yourselves, and it's got hot water, it's got a cozy lounge, it's perfect. An old babcha donated it to us. We give her a monthly rental, but she gave up her house. She moved in next door with her daughter to give us a place to stay. God bless her. God bless you all. Love you guys, and I'll try and catch up with you a little bit later this evening, but we are almost about to ship out. Stay strong and mighty, you beautiful people.
excellent stuff from Pete there. Really good to hear him and what he thinks about the whole project too. So that's really good news. And just to give you an update from JR, and this is very rough around the edges, but he reckons already $2,320 odd there or thereabouts. So that's just amazing already.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. It's I just think about Pete. He'll message me, but it's cold here tonight, and where he's walking is extremely dangerous, and it's just, this is what they do because the drone warfare is brutal, and they're having to do a lot of extractions by foot now. So it's there. I brought the front right to you. That video came to me 30 minutes ago, so wow. It's real time.
Well, thanks for that, Greg. Really appreciate that.
Simo,
of course,
you, yes.
Appreciate obviously what your man Pete's doing too. Incredible. AJ Simon here. So thanks, mate. JR's now been, his cash has been flushed out of him. That's been and gone already. And just thank you so much to JR for that. It's just incredibly generous. He's so generous with his time as well. But AJ Simon and all those others, and Adrian, who I think has donated both to here, but also on the back channels to you, Greg as well. So he's done that, and then another 200, I think. So Adrian is a legend in all, well, certainly in my estimation.
So I was watching that and I was thinking he's profusely thanking us, and I have this like complex, like constantly feeling like I'm not doing enough. How is he thanking us? Like I know we're helping, but like he's actually there doing this work. I'm like, there's not enough that we can ever do to get him the materials and things he needs when he's doing that. And it feels so overwhelming at times.
I probably can answer that. 3 or 4 nights ago, they were called out, and Pete and I talk nonstop. In fact, today we took a break from talking about the war, and we started talking about him growing up in South Africa and me growing up in Norfolk, Virginia, and just having conversations back and forth. Danny Carver, thank you for that. A few days ago, Pete had a horrible experience where 2 guys in his group, now when I say his group, that means like in his house, his company, and then 4 others, medics that are in his battalion, were going out to do a rescue, and they couldn't accomplish the rescue because it was too dangerous. The 2 medics that are from his house were in one of their little vehicles that you guys have seen, and then the 4 other medics were following them in a car, and the 4 medics were hit by an FPV drone and killed, and they lost those 4 medics just a few days ago. So when Pete is saying thank you, I'm confident he's in his mind, he's going, man, if those guys would have been in that armored vehicle, they'd be alive right now. So he's paying it forward with that gratitude, because it's a serious need, guys. Dr. Gertis, you said, when this started, you just felt that there was a pent-up demand where people wanted to help Ukraine but didn't have an avenue on how to do it. We see now how we can do it. We're here, and we will continue to be here until victory. But you also said, Greg, when you get there, I guess this is where your PhD comes in. Ask the commanders what they need. The ones you have relationship with. And then we went from medical supplies, and we went to metal detectors and stretchers and sleds. And now the huge thing is batteries for their radios and antennas, which we'll be dropping tons of those. We dropped some today. You guys will be seeing video on that later. But when we started really investigating these, we're about saving lives. Okay. And I know for us, we're about saving lives. And when Pete and other medics were going, and frontline guys were going, man, if we just had an armored vehicle, we would not be losing some of the soldiers we're losing. Right. Their lives would be saved. So we've went to this, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, and for more of the backstory there, we were talking about initially like tourniquets and gauze and whatever we know they want. And then we got to phase 2 on the ground, ask them what they need. And then we got to phase 3 of wow, I never would have guessed metal detectors, although it makes sense. We wouldn't have thought about batteries, although it makes sense. And then, I wasn't thinking big enough to think about something like what we're doing right now. And but asking them what they need, but it turns out they'll tell
Pretty
you.
interesting. We were helping a group today, and I can't definitely tell you guys where we're at now because we're on the front. But we will be running the whole front for the next 10 days or so. But where we're at today, we're helping a new group, and this group, we actually we were helping them. Oh goodness, a year ago, and they said, "Man, no, this is the other guy. The first group. We've helped 2 groups today, which you guys will be seeing. This was the first group. Yeah, and this guy is actually fighting on the southern front, and he says, "Do you have any stretcher sleds?"
Mm-hmm.
And if it had been 6 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago, I wouldn't have known anything the guy's talking about. But since we've been doing this and working hand in hand with the front, not only did we say no, but we have the supplier and we will order them right now for you. People have been donating for this, for sleds and all that, and we've got them ready to go. And so now we're already processing that. And when we get to his position, we will give the sleds because of the generosity of all you guys. We're hitting the nail on the head. That's what I'm trying to say, John.
What I love about what you and Zhenya are doing out there, and that Darren and myself and others are helping in the back channels with, is the fact that you go to these guys, you meet them. I mean, I've seen this happen. I've seen how you network, and it's really effective, and it's something that happens all the time. And there's just endless needs, right? But you are going to people and say, right, let's work together. And they say, brilliant. Yeah. What do you need? We need this. And then you guys straight away, like within half an hour, like Zhenya is on his phone doing stuff and working out how we can get X, Y, and Z. And then you've got an idea about how to take that forward. And it's just a really reactive, but dynamic and very efficient way of helping out the guys. It's not, they don't have to say to their bosses, and I know you want to say something great, but they don't have to say to their superiors, oh, we need more of X, and then the superiors say, we'll get onto the procurement people, and then 6 months later they get some bloody gauze or whatever. I'm exaggerating, but the point is that they say to you, we need X, and Zhenya goes, oh, X, I love X. I think I know someone that does X, and goes da 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 da, and it says, how about this? How about this? Yeah. Oh no, you want slightly different one? Okay, da 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 da. Yeah, it's slightly different. Yeah, da 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 da. How about this one? Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, we get you 50 then in a couple of weeks, and then job done. It's just brilliant.
Okay, so a couple of things there, and then I'm gonna say a third thing, and I'll go quickly. But first of all, you need to understand that Zhenya's been doing this since the war began, which is 2014. Okay. He was on Maidan when people were being sniped, dragging them from death. People died in his hands that were sniped on Maidan in 2014. I arrived a couple days after Maidan, and I was there and the buildings were still burning. So this has started all the way back 10 years ago. This didn't just start on February the 24th, 2022. So these relationships are built. But number 2, why can we or Zhenya do all of this coordination? Okay. It is because of you people. You need to understand it. All of us people from different backgrounds, different walks of life, coming together and finding an avenue we can trust. And my job is to validate your trust. Zhenya's job is to make it happen. Johnny's job was to come here and put his boots on the ground to further his information. Dr. Gertis' job is to extrapolate all the political sides of this, all of the bringing the people together, figuring it, all of that stuff out, and then giving me homework to do. When he's sitting there, he'll call me. I'm in Ukraine. He goes, man, I got something for you to do. Next thing I know, 6 hours, I'm sitting in front of a computer. And I said, dude, I'm not in your class.
Yeah, I am a known homework threat. That is true.
So that's the second thing. The third thing, there are many people. I know right now there's over 500 watching right now live, and many will be watching later. So there are many people in here, for example, that have messaged me privately and said, Greg, there is a Brit who has been sacrificing his life to demine there. And he is an amazing, amazing guy. And so is there any way at all that you guys could help him? So I started following some of his stuff, and some of you are going to know it because some of you in here messaged me. His name is Harley, and he's got a large following. He put a message out on Twitter a couple of days ago and said, we need a battery. Our guys need a certain battery. And if there's anybody out there in the world that could help us raise money for that, I would be so thankful. So today I'm thinking about it. I get to where I'm staying tonight, and I'm thinking about about Harley. And I said, okay, we got to do something about this. And I went back and read the Twitter feed, and it's like $10 here and $10 there. And I'm sitting there going, okay, we got this massive project going on, and all of our focus is there. But people through this whole project have donated even anonymously before the project started, or meaning not to it was an open donation. Help somewhere where you see it. Harley Whitehead, that's it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Certified EOD technician. He saved thousands of lives on the Ukrainian front lines. So guys, tonight I messaged Harley. And I said, Harley, Greg here, because we had talked a couple of times. And I said, Harley, we're going to buy the whole battery system. It's about, Zhenya would know, it's about $1,000 system that he's trying to raise money for. But you guys have been so generous. And so many people are in the chat saying, please help Harley. Please help Harley. Guys, it's done. Zhenya says in the chat, it's already ordered and it will be shipped to us. We'll be picking it up en route on our run at a certain place wherever Zhenya has it set up. And the deal's done. Why can we do that? Because of you people, all of us working together. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bish, bash, bosh. Done. Yep, yeah, absolutely. And that's fantastic. And that, really, really good. There's a couple of, so much, every time you guys open your mouths, I want to like chip in on something that you've said. To talk about the 2014, and I've said this a lot to my channel, but honestly, if you have not watched the documentary, which is on Netflix, but it's also free on YouTube now, Netflix have put it on YouTube. The documentary Winter on Fire is one of the single greatest documentaries I've ever watched in my life. It is that powerful. It is that good. And in that, when I was out in Ukraine with Greg and Zhenya and Pierre, we stayed, and this is Pierre said, right, we're going to stay at the Hotel Ukraine or Hotel Ukraine on the Maidan Square because of it's quite an old school. It's not like, interestingly enough, given the position it's in, it's not like the nicest hotel. It's quite old school and Soviet, but the position it has on the Maidan Square and the place it played in the part it played in the Maidan Revolution, and I think it was used almost as a hospital for a wee while. That Zhenya was like, this is the first time I've been back here. The last time I was here, I was dressed in white, and there were dead bodies lying over there, and we were looking in the foyer, and he was pointing to where the dead bodies would have been laid, and it's just so significant for me to be in that place and watching Winter on Fire and seeing that hotel so often in the imagery that's there. But anyway, if you have not watched Winter on Fire, it's one of the things you have to do. There's several, and sorry, I'll let you guys talk in a second. So Winter on Fire is an absolute must. Navalny won a documentary. It is a must. 20 Days in Mariupol, won an Oscar, that also has won an Oscar. And then fourth, there is a new series on Netflix now called Turning Point about the Cold War. I'm most of the way through the first episode, and that is looking brilliant. And loads of people have said that's brilliant. So there are 4 things, homework for you guys, you have to watch. Anyway, that's my tuppence. Over to you guys.
Amen.
And so anyway, those are things that are really, really worth watching. Check out Harley. I know nothing about him, but I would love to interview him, so that's something for me to look into in a while. If we just go to, and thank you so much for people who are continuing to donate. It's really incredible of you. Just going to go to what's going on the front lines at the moment. Very quick whisk through the front lines, if that's okay, guys. Just to let you know that obviously there's lots of activity going on in the north, and once we whisk through the front line, we'll concentrate on the north, because I'd love to get you guys' opinions of whether that is a good idea, how we even measure whether it's a good idea. Do we even know what the objectives are? But anyway, we'll come back to that. What has pleased me about the last week, and Greg, you might have something to say about this being in the know, is that there has been no mapping movements, ostensibly speaking, in the whole of the northeast axis. There was a tiny bit maybe around Turney within the week, but generally there's stasis there, and vitally even Ivnivska, there's been no change in the mapping there, which is huge, because Ivnivska and Bodanivka just above it are these two villages to the west of Bakhmut that act as
west of Bakhmut.
Act as the buffer zone to Chasiv Yar. And it's really important that if the Ukrainians want to keep hold of Chasiv Yar, which is I think really important for them to do, then they need to keep the Russians at bay in Ivnivska. And the fact that there's been no movement there for a week, I think, is massively significant. What do you think about the kind of stasis? Do you think the Russians are culminating somewhat, Greg?
Oh, you're completely accurate on it's basically stagnant there. But let's not make a mistake about that stagnation with the line not moving. They are shelling the snot out of Chasiv Yar. They are shelling these so you see the line there, guys, with the red and the yellow. They're shelling it hard in Chasiv Yar, but the line's not moving. So once again, we come back to the same story. If Ukraine had the ability to fight back with enough weapons, we'd be looking actually at a different front line right now. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the last 5 months would have been entirely different. But you get these funny scenarios that have turned up. So had the US given, and this is me being a bit of a devil's advocate, had the US given $60 billion of kit 5 months ago, which would have saved tens of thousands of lives and would have been absolutely what Ukraine needed, there is this flip side that Europe might not have turned up to the point they have. So this has actually forced Europe.
So this is a silver lining, Johnny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that Europe got the memo with a year to spare before the November elections, and then whoever takes office, whether it's Trump or Biden, right? They've had a year to prepare for what's coming down the pike, let's say. And they've gotten they woke up. I was reading today that the difference between the Europeans in NATO, the amount of, if they're all giving their 2% required, you know how much that comes to? $63 billion. That's the difference of what they're not doing. Guess what? That sounds very familiar as a figure for that we're talking about in the U.S., right? Like, so the Europeans stepping into this role is going to be really important for them to do. I don't like at all that the U.S. has been, at loggerheads between the House and the Senate, and the Republicans within, holding that up. It's tragic, but the Europeans are at least aware, thinking, working toward not just depending on the United States. And this is perhaps long term. It's like an inoculation that's allowing it to. This inoculation's keeping us from getting worse by getting us to wake up and see what's really coming down the pike.
Yeah, and I think there's also an interesting idea, which is was it Lithuania or Estonia? The government produced a very well thought through document about a month ago on exactly what could be done to support Ukraine in a very meaningful way. And they suggested 0.25% of their GDP on defense for Ukraine. And if everyone did that, which they are doing, and in fact, I think 2 Baltic nations, I think it's Estonia and Lithuania, are doing this. I don't know about Latvia. Anyway, but if everyone did that, and they actually lay out how doable that is, then Ukraine would have no trouble. I mean, obviously, it's more difficult than that, but ostensibly they would not have a problem with equipment at all. And it just takes that political will, and it's just really interesting that one of the Baltic governments has produced a plan that is a workable, doable plan. That if everyone took it up, every NATO country took it up, then Ukraine would not be in trouble. But there you go. So going to Avdiivka, where it's still fairly dynamic, the Russians are still pushing hard, although, we are wondering how long they can keep pushing, how much they've got left in the tank. Some good news to see some blue pins in the north here from two of the mappers. So we've got Andrew Perpetua and Suryat Maps there showing some Ukrainian gains pushing back down along this road, which is important because you've got higher ground here towards the west. So you've got a river that comes down from Bedici and cuts around here through Umanska. And the Ukrainians are able to sit on the higher ground with the river as a defensive piece of geography. The Russians would want to come in from the north and down here if they want to get around having to send equipment across, albeit a small river. It does have these ponds and lakes and whatnot that make it particularly difficult. Now they would have to come from the north, which means maybe pushing along here. Now if the Ukrainians are pushing back in the north there, my speculation would be that's really very good news and would stop the Russians being able to do that at least somewhat. It's going to depend what happens in Bedici, which is particularly difficult at the moment. The Russians are making some gains in Bedici. Any thoughts about this neck of the woods, the whole Avdiivka front line? Greg, particularly?
No, I think you nailed that. My major concern is actually south of that now.
Yeah,
that's our major problem areas right there above Marinka.
You got Pervomaisky, you got Novelsky, you've got and then
actually the one
Krasnohorivka.
That's the one we have to watch the most, Krasnohorivka, because up above that, actually, right there,
Novelsky.
So that gives a pivot point for Russia to actually start hitting Krasnohorivka from that northeastern section. And as you well know, there's nothing there but fields. Yeah. And Krasnohorivka is actually, a city the size of Chasiv Yar, actually bigger than Chasiv Yar. I think pre-war population 16,000. And man, if they get that, guys, we need to hold Krasnohorivka. We need to hold Chasiv Yar. Let's just leave it at that. So,
and Novelska's this
I'm
tiny
more concerned down there.
Yeah, it's a tiny agricultural settlement, but it's been very, very important for the last couple of years since the war started, because this whole area has the Russians have really struggled to get from the purple line, which is the annexed 2014 line, further forward. They moved through Pisky and then to Pervomaisky. Then they were pushed back, and now they're pushing back through again, and they are taking land in Pervomaisky. But since Avdiivka has been lost, Novelsky's lost some of its importance, because Novelsky was massively important as this tiny little place that stopped the Russians being able to flank Pervomaisky, which itself stopped the Russians being able to flank the Avdiivka salient. So there's a couple of really small settlements that have been very important for the front line. Novelsky is one of them, and Pobieda
the issue with
the
that
other.
Settlement right there, Johnny, if you go back to there is it's the only cover around for miles and miles and miles.
Yeah,
that's why that little village is so important.
Yeah, and it was really important, but with Avdiivka going, it's slightly less important, but it still is, I think, important for holding out. So Krasnohorivka is not itself flanked, but that could be a problem with Novelska looking like it's gone to the Russians. The same can be said for this small settlement called Pobieda, which was the one that stopped Marinka getting flanked, and in fact that held out until Marinka was taken. So it's a bit like Novelska held out until Avdiivka was taken, and Pervomaisky a little bit later. But so these tiny places can be super important to stop flanking moves. Now, what's good news is that from Krasnohorivka through Marinka to Novomykhailivka, that it's been more stable this week. Again, rather like the north, rather like Bakhmut, things are stabilizing. Now, again, you're only as good as your last day. So that can change, and the Russians will be pushing. But I get a sense, I don't know, Andrew Perpetua was talking about this on his live stream the other night, whether the Russians are somewhat culminating, whether they don't have that strength and depth that they might think that they have, because they are now starting to grind. The Ukrainians are getting more ammunition in. They're starting to rotate a little bit. It could be that things are looking a little better for the Ukrainians. But again, that's not to say it's at all easier.
When you're undermanned, when you're undersupplied, and you're holding like this, you're daggone right that looks good for Ukraine. So if we can just if we can get them some supplies, if we can get them some armored vehicles, if we can, it will make such a massive difference, guys, such a massive difference. But we'll see. Yeah. So overall, to be quite honest, the North I'm a little concerned about, but right here is the other major concern. And it's just a lot of shelling going on, guys. A lot of bombing. I get so many emails now. I need to interject here.
Yeah.
Honestly, that I'm not able to check them for another day or two, and then I try to reply to everybody because we're rolling, especially now, very hard. And I guess this was divine leadership that led me here, or it could be an aligning of the planets for Johnny. Either way, my phone buzzed right beside me and I clicked it open, and just a message here, and I need to read this. Richard Rock. I just donated $1,000 via PayPal. Can you credit the 1,000 to Richard on your show? Richard? I mean, it's like, dude, it's like a miracle that I picked this phone up to check that. Sorry, Johnny, an alignment of the planets.
It's a probability. It's a
probability. It's a probability. We're going to do some probability analysis for Johnny to keep him okay and not having medical issues after the program. Sorry. No to you from sorry, Richard. That was at the bottom of the email. Richard, RR, thank you. He says this larger donation may encourage others to do larger donations. Thank you. And this is from Minnesota. So thank you, Richard. And once again, I'm just happy I actually grabbed my phone there. So
he's a true Viking, except he's not one that pillages. He unpillages. So thank you, Richard.
Awesome. Thank you.
When you were looking at the maps, and this is in military analysis, this is more political. Today is the 17th. It's the last day of Putin's election. How much of this do you think might subside as a consequence of that? I don't mean go away. Question. I just mean it's been trying to show that we're really tough right through the election, and at a certain point you can let up.
Yeah, that's such a good question, because I've been long saying that these pushes, Avdiivka was about March the 17th. And you could argue that these areas down here, I think they'll probably still try to keep pushing here, because I think this area down by Vuhledar, from Vuhledar to Marinka, this road, Konstantinivka, the Vodyanye there, where they keep some radars and whatnot. I think this is operationally fairly significant. And likewise up here. I think Kurakove here is an important objective that they've always wanted. So I think they might keep pushing there. But in general, I think that's a great question. It's going to be really interesting to see the next week, Darren, to see whether the Russians actually do take their foot off the gas, how much of this was down to trying to please Putin.
Great minds think alike. It's exactly what I was going to tell you guys. And it's going to be interesting because Jane and I are just starting this run, and everywhere you're pointing to on the map, we will be in all of these places. So we will get firsthand reports over the next 10 days or so. But Marinka is going to continue to be pushed, that line. And the other one is, I have a feeling they're going to try to push out Robotny and close that line back up. And then maybe have some respite, or we'll see what happens. We just have to wait and see. And the other is, what you have to remember is the drones, the FPV drones that are rolling every day, just like Pete talked about. I do not know how much they would slow down, but we'll see. So yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. Going to be very interesting over the next 7 to 10 days.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting that we have as you say, Robotna, some gains for the Russians according to Suriyat maps. All the caveats applied to Suriyat maps. They often, or he often, shows changes, even if it's just like an APC that's dropped off some people and then been blown up. It's like the Russians control that, so we need to be careful with those movements, and that's why there's a difference between, say, Suriyat maps here and Andrew Perpetua and Deep State maps. So big differences around this Verbove area, but they are pushing here in the Robotny area.
I can tell you from firsthand, we help guys that are in that hole right there. We talk to them personally. It's tough down there.
Yeah, and that's where there's the only bit of the Surovikin line that the Ukrainians may still have a foothold in, but more likely it's just a grey zone. Now, what's you were talking about the Russians pushing out the Ukrainians out of this salient. I think this is because I wonder about this, because I don't think it has any particular intrinsic value for the Ukrainians at the moment, right? It doesn't really matter whether they hold this or not, whether they push back out to where they started the counteroffensive. I don't think it makes much difference, other than it acts as a buffer zone to Orikhiv, and that may be why they're still trying to. You've got to fight somewhere, right? So you might as well fight here rather than here.
You raise the question, and even probably, I know Dr. Gerdes is not so much in the technical map analysis, but he's into the sociology and the psychology of this. At some point there has to be a payoff, because really, what is the purpose to hold that? And what is the loss you're going to have, especially when you're already struggling with supply and, to be honest, the rotation of soldiers and those issues. Now, we do a lot in Orikhiv. Over the next 10 days, I will be in Orikhiv at some point, and that city is demolished, guys. So, you look at that map, guys, and you go, okay, so yeah, they're down there in Robotny fighting, and that's where the war's going, guys. Orikhiv is demolished. There is no Orikhiv. There is a city there and ruins. And yes, a couple thousand people still live there, but it's not like there's something to gain. So it's hard for people to understand. We look at a front line and we say, okay, well, that's where it's at. No, beyond that, 10, 15, 20, 30 kilometers, especially in some of these key areas. It's a major challenge, and it is seriously, Orikhiv is smashed. So yeah, absolutely. It would be a key place to hold, just because it's pretty good size, Johnny, and a lot of infrastructure there that can be used for staging and supplying, even though it's destroyed.
Interesting. Sorry, Darren, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say it's not so much. So there's a little bit of a psychological issue of losing the ground and then having to, even if it's going to another place, but that's not really what's important. They have to be thinking at a general's level about what is really strategic and what's really not, and how do we make sure that we hold on to the things that are musts. Now, I want to point something else out that's not mapped exactly. Cheryl Waitley put this out at 4:26. It's 4:30 now, so I've been biting my tongue waiting for this. Putin will probably do a massive mobilization now that the election's over. That's another probability. Okay, what do we think of that?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I've been talking about for ages, which is that you've been waiting for a mobilization to happen. I argue that Putin he's existentially connected to this war. Like, his existence depends on the outcome of this war more than any other human being. Like Zelensky, if Ukraine loses this war, Zelensky won't get deposed or die. I mean, Ukraine's entire existence is obviously connected to the outcome of this war, but like Zelensky personally isn't, in a way that Putin personally is. So if he loses this war, then you can argue very successfully, I think, that that's the end of Putin, his regime. And when it comes to dictators, when you end their regime, it doesn't normally end in them just retiring to their mansion. And he's got many he could retire to, many super yachts he could retire to. He's the richest human being on earth. But the likelihood is it won't end well for him. And he will know that. So there is that element. There's also the element that, and this is still being said by people like Budanov, and I know you can't always trust what Budanov says, but there's a lot of very good evidence to suggest his health isn't great as well. Putin, and so there is the element that his bad health could be causing him to make poor decisions, but also like it's the last roll of his dice, basically. And so I think that you will get him making decisions that a normal rational actor in another country wouldn't make, because he is personally connected to the outcome of this, or his life is.
I want to add one other thing, but I want to hear what Greg has to say. And that is, I think it won't happen tomorrow. It'll happen after a major incident. Kerch Bridge gets hit, and like hit for real hit. And then we need to do this to mobilize, or something. Something really big will be a triggering event to give the pretext of what he already wants to do. That's my guess. I could be totally wrong. I've been wrong before, but that's my guess. Greg, what do you think?
Really sensible guess.
I personally believe that Putin is all in, and the poker analogy there. He's all in, and he sees, and I'm not saying what he sees, but we all can see that our world has transitioned over the last decade. And whether we go back to, even the pandemic that was raging, and then the political transitions that are happening throughout the United States, the war in the Middle East, the China-Taiwan story that doesn't go away, Rocket Boy firing rockets continually so that Japan or South Korea will kind of lay low. All of this is... a blind man can see this. So this is what's happening. And Putin knows, okay, the world is never going back to the way it was 20 years ago. Never. So this is my moment in time. And I remind you guys, I was with, last night, I did a live interview with Pavel Ivanovich. So if you're here on Johnny's channel, you can go over to my channel, or, the man's 93 years old. He was in his village in Lviv when the German Nazis came in and took the village, and his mother would have to make them food. And he says they actually treated us nicely. It was actually, the way they were treating us was okay. And they would only make my mother taste the food that she made before she would have to feed them. And then he was in Stalin's Red Army. Okay, the man served in Stalin's army, and he is pure. I mean, every piece of his mind is there. And he says, listen, guys, Putin is so much worse than Stalin, and the world can't see it yet. So that's taking it from a living history book. So this is definitely all in for Russia and for Vladimir Putin. Let me say it that way. So whatever unfolds from this, we're going to see. And Dr. Gertis, I haven't thought about it that way, but your comment about some major deal happening, and then he will ring the bell like we haven't seen yet. It's really good concept. It's possible.
I wonder if they'll get to say war at that time.
Yeah, exactly.
And not go to jail for saying, I'd be upset if I was in jail for rotting away for saying war instead of special military operation. And then it's all cool now. And hey, can I come out?
Well, it's dripping a little bit in the Russian language through Peskov and through Lavrov. Every once in a while, they'll drop it. Yep. But they do try to still maintain that special military operation. But they're dropping the war term a little bit more. But hey, I mean, Dr. Gertis, this is more your expertise here. This election actually means something for this war. I don't know how to explain that, but politically for Russia, for Vladimir Putin, it's going to mean something. And it's equally the elections that are happening in Europe and the elections that will happen in the United States. All of these things that are happening in 2024 is going to, it means something. I don't know what it means, but that's your expertise.
I wish I had the background to know if the 2018 election had a fraction of the people dropping ink and throwing bombs and what. I mean, I know there was some resistance, but I wish I could see a side-by-side comparison of the amount of resistance, because you don't resist what you know to be fair, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I lost the election, whatever election it was. I lost this election, you lost that election, but we're not marching in the streets because it's free and fair. And I got to say, my guy, you got to say your guy. Okay. right? So when you see this kind of thing, it's because people recognize, and like, God bless that lady that's going in there and dropping ink in there, taking a picture, knowing like, yep, I'm going to jail.
Well, yeah, and there's a number of those who have done that. There's people who've
Mhm.
set fire to ballots. There are people who've dropped ink in, iodine, all sorts. There's a good, I think there's been like 50 now, something like that. At one stage it was 37. I'm sure there's more than that now. Arrests over things that have been happening. You look at the stats. There's some, I think, a tongue-in-cheek bit of article analysis, maybe in the Guardian, or might be someone reading that and then doing a tongue-in-cheek analysis, talking about how, well, 88% isn't that good when you look at King Jong-un and when you look at some of these other dictators. And like, I think it was Saddam Hussein who had like 100%. It's like, so he's obviously playing this game about trying to be sort of make it look kosher enough that it has to be believable enough. But he's upped it from his previous percentage, I think, in a previous election. When you then go to, I think, the Donbass and Crimea exit polls, they're looking like it's closer to 95%. Chechnya, I think, is something like 99%. So yeah, there are some fairly unbelievable things going on with regard to the election. What I'm interested to see is what the reaction will be from international players from other nations. Do we in the West say it's legitimate? Do we phone up Putin? Does Rishi Sunak or Joe Biden phone up Putin and say congratulations on getting elected? I don't think that's going to happen. There are already Baltic nations that are going to say it's not a legitimate election, I believe. I wonder how many people will go along with that and what the ramifications of that even are.
So I watch lots of, in my downtime, I watch documentaries about cults and dictators and things like that, because I'm just fascinated by that sort of thing. And it's absolutely amazing to me that Putin thinks, if I have more of the vote and I have more of the vote that's come out, and I have 80 some odd percent, my prediction is 86%, by the way. So I put that into a video the other day, 86%.
Not bad.
Yeah, that's my, but where in the free world do you see an election where it's a blowout by 86%, right? 86% to whatever it is. It's a four-way race. Bill Clinton had, I think, 43% of the vote in a three-way race in the United States. Like, if you got 60% of the vote, you just trounced your opponent like by so large a margin. It's almost embarrassing. But he thinks that he looks better, not more fraudulent. If he had, like that's what's going on. It reminded me of this documentary I watched where Saddam Hussein is talking to the judge like, how dare you talk to me? I'm Saddam Hussein. Like he still has this mentality like, you how do you think you can even talk to me like this? Because I am this. And that's kind of where.
Well, I think so. Putin, when he started off ruling, there was this big thought, and this is kind of goes, I think, towards how people like Angela Merkel were seeing Putin and Russia, which is let's try and get them into the group and change them through osmosis. We start dealing with you. We'll buy loads of hydrocarbons off you. You become part of our larger free market enterprise with the EU and with the global community, and you will possibly change. And there was good. I don't blame her for that. Like, I know lots of people have 20/20 vision with hindsight and go, God, Merkel did all this and did that. But I'm like, no, I don't blame her for that. Like, if that worked, we'd be looking back in the history going, well, that was good, but it didn't work, because actually I think Putin just started changing. He was like potentially going to be that kind of leader, but then seemed to just go more and more down this I don't know, revisionist kind of route of then seeing himself as this leader of a new empire. And then I think power just begets more desire for power, and it becomes like a vicious cycle, and then you can't get out of it. Like, you can't reverse from there, because that never happens with dictators. And so there is only one direction. I mean, that's my interpretation. I'm no leadership expert like yourself, but like, my interpretation of what happened is this snowball that just carried on going until we're here at the moment. And then he wants to be the new Tsar, the new Peter the Great, or whatever.
The only caveat you have to remember, and that is, it's like a bell I keep ringing. is there is a Soviet mindset that is ingrained, and that becomes at least a part of the puzzle we have to think. Like, for example, Johnny, I agree with you. I would love to try to massage it, caress, change the mentality, begin to shift. Okay. But there is a philosophical Soviet mentality that says, you're wrong, we're right. And that's the challenge, I think, that we don't know where that line actually, it's kind of a blurry line there. And we try to find out where it falls.
Well, it's a really good point, because you've got now Medvedev saying the other day which is going to be on the behest of or sanctioned by Putin. You have him saying Russia has no borders. Like, imagine if Joe Biden or Rishi Sunak or Emmanuel Macron came out and actually said, "Oh, do you know what? There are no borders to Britain. The British Empire is the entire world, and we're going to come and get you guys. You're going to be part of us. Those of you that left us, you're going to regret that." But that's kind of what they're saying. So what Greg's talking about, this idea of like, they just have this, you're wrong, we're right. You are in a nation that is just a potential part of the Russian Empire.
So you know what you call that? You call that "Make America Great Britain Again."
Listen, I'm honestly, I'm still trying to interpret what JP said about 10 minutes ago when he used the word iodine. I'm assuming that's the Queen's English for iodine, but I'm still working to try to decipher that one.
We were talking to Green Room earlier, and I even didn't correct myself. I debased myself to say divisive instead of divisive, just to make you guys feel better about yourselves.
Thank you.
But yeah, you might need translations. Need to say thank you to Kevin Force, as I said earlier, and John Larkin. Just a few more thanks, Danny Carver, for becoming a member. And of course, Adrian, we've already thanked for that prompted JR's first matching as well. AJ Simo, thanks a lot, mate. You are a legend, and did elsewise as well. Harry O, thank you for your kind words there. Danny Carver has also gifted 5 Greg Terry memberships.
You, Danny.
And we have Mark Biscu. So Mark, as we know, is, or as many of us will know, is he lives in Canada at the moment as a Ukrainian with his wife Olena. We visited Olena's parents, Greg, and it was an absolutely tremendous experience.
Yes.
And I'm just in the middle of trying to get the second episode up and running. I'm so busy that, like, trying to get things together. To get the second episode of my experiences out there, it will happen. Hopefully it will be done by the end of this week. But he said, when the war began, we feared the world would not care. Thank you to you guys and to everyone for caring. We just added to our previous snacks donation on Greg's site. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Just insanely. You are one of the most just generous humans. This is specifically towards JP's wine fund, Mark and Olena. Well, it's funding some beer. So thanks, mate. And mine tastes good. But yes.
While he's on that note about the world not caring, go check your messenger. I sent you a link. It's John McCain talking 10 years ago. You might want to play this little, just like a minute's worth of that. And I want to talk about something going back to Greg while you're. Can you grab that?
Yeah. I'll look for that. And if it's one that I think it is, I played it before, and it is absolutely magnificent.
Yeah. So while you're doing that, I want to go back to Greg's point. Greg's point was that, like, the Soviet mindset. I saw this when I was in Lithuania. We call it the Soviet hangover, right? But it's not just Putin having that Soviet mindset. It's the people having that Soviet mindset, allowing Putin to do what Putin's doing to those people. So there's a difference. Like, why did democracy not take in Iraq? What history did they have of actually, like, being a democracy? Like, so in the American experience, we came over, Johnny was just raising this, talking about our roots. We had a couple hundred years of self-regulation, of self-government that we got from 1619 in Jamestown all the way through to 1776. We had a good long span of actually, like, we're rebelling because we have this self-government and you can't take it away from us, right? So they don't have that kind of mentality. The greater question is, and I saw Ozzy Bugga in here earlier, the greater question is, how is it that Russians are peasants and Ukrainians are Cossacks? right? There's a very different mentality amongst the Ukrainians than there are with the Russians, like just taking it and being like, well, you know, what are we going to do? We can't do anything about it. And the Ukrainians are like, what? We're not doing this, right? I think, honestly, I fear for Zelensky immediately after the war is over that it's going to be like Churchill after World War II, right? I mean, not fear like I'm terrified, but that could very well happen given the way that Ukraine, they just won't take this kind of stuff. And there's a different mentality. How did that different mentality take? It's because they're two very different peoples. And so at any rate, I just thought that Soviet mindset, it's still there, but that Soviet mindset's allowing these kind of things to fester. And tell me if I'm off base, Greg.
No, I think you're spot on. And I just think this is the missing ingredient that, you know, that people need to understand. Like Ukraine, even Ukrainians, and Zhenya's in here, he could walk in right where I'm at now and confirm it. They're breaking out of that, and they're going for it very aggressively. It can't be explained. Honestly, it has to be experienced. I really believe that, because when you begin to witness it and you go, okay, these people do not think like I think. Like, there are things that we try to accomplish here. Okay, I'm going to tell you one story right now. Okay. Now, this has nothing to do with our NGO to NGO. This has nothing to do with our ability to do everything that we have committed to do to you guys. But this is just an illustration I want you to understand, because nothing stops us. We have our lawyers. We have everything. There were some things we needed to purchase for this run with cash. Okay, because we go from charity to charity, and then everything's done electronically. It's high tech here, and receipts and all that jazz. So I had our office in Pennsylvania. Okay, send me 5,000 cash. We need to buy this. Like, out of that's coming Harry's or Harley's power generator, all this stuff. And I went to the bank. Just a simple MoneyGram, guys. Simple. I went into the bank and I said, and I know the guys. In fact, one's a subscriber on my channel. He watches every night. He's probably watching right now. Привет, Igor. Okay, so listen. And that's his real name, Igor. But I said, guys, I'm getting this out. It's been sent over. Here is my code. Here is my passport. And the guy looked at me and goes, we can't give it to you. That's it. Let's think about that again. Okay. Here is my code, and it's our organization money coming here, and here's my passport. It's not your money, and it's not Ukraine's money. It's this group's money that is helping your country. Right, Greg? I completely agree with you, and I'm so happy, but we can't give you the money. I said, dude, I work in stinking Karachi, Pakistan, and I can get money off MoneyGram. What are you talking about? He goes, it's our bureaucracy breaking out from the Soviet system. I said, okay, so what do we need to do? And this is what he said. He says, Greg, I need you to go to your apartment in your city of Khmelnytsky. And I live on the 7th floor. And he says, I need you to get 2 of the neighbors to sign an affidavit notarized that you actually sleep in that room. Are you guys hearing me tonight? This is a week ago. I had to leave the bank, go to the apartment building. Excuse me, Anna, would you please sign this affidavit with your passport number and your guarantee that I live in this apartment? And that had to be done. I'm not bashing on Ukraine for that. I'm trying to help everybody understand. Ukraine's been breaking out of this since 1991. We're in 2024. Russia's never been breaking out of it, guys. It was all a faux pas from 91 on, okay? And that is why I just keep pressing that we need to keep standing, keep supporting, keep doing all that we're doing, because it's not just a war of good and evil, or light and darkness, but we're talking about really an incredible group of people in this nation of Ukraine breaking free to freedom. And it's a challenge. So I just encourage you guys, when you look at news stories and you're watching whatever your news choice is, just try to have a little bit of critical thinking to understand okay, I'm looking at this through my German glasses, my British glasses, my Australian glasses, my American glasses. Okay, that's great. But make sure you at least change the lens to try to think how the environment is, whether it's inside Russia or inside Ukraine. And it'll help you get a handle on how, the process we're battling here. So I hope that made sense.
That's right.
Absolutely. Just to say that the wonderful community that we have, over $4,700. That's a rough estimate, which is just absolutely incredible. I wanted to say thanks again for Mark, super kind human being. Paul, who is amazing, as well as gifted 5 Greg Terry Experience memberships. Paul Gouda
Thank you, Paul.
Always a great supporter of the channels. Tito Valenzuela has said with a nice super sticker for Greg. Don't forget Kirill. So that's for you, Greg.
Let me speak about that real quick. We will not. We will have Kirill's birthday party in the immediate future. I also received another question from people that are so concerned because they says, Greg, we saw where this village of Mirny was taken, and it's all public. Everybody knows that Kirill's village is Mirny, but I want to set everybody at ease. In Ukraine, every region has a Mirny. Okay, so Kirill's village was already destroyed, so it's not been taken over. I mean, it's destroyed, but they're okay. It's a different Mirny. So
that's our Springfield in the United States.
Yeah, I think Greenville. There's a Greenville in every state as well.
It amazes me. The map, when I'm looking at the maps of Ukraine, it's like, oh, there's another place called Stepova. Oh, who knew? There's another one.
Yeah.
There's another one. And I did a whole video. I did a 5-minute special video that I just want to refer people to about the mapping things. And it is a thing about Ukraine. I know in the US we have, or you guys have the same places in many counties, and in Britain it's the same with many places. But literally, some of these places in Ukraine there's a Nova Bukhmativka by Avdiivka, which is across the railway line from a Nova Bukhmativka. So it's not like a different county. It's literally like you can throw. And it's like, what are you doing there? And I had this big video where I was like waxing lyrical about this. And I said, look, here's a place. Here's another place. And then I was going mental about this because it was only next door. And then while I was doing it live on the video, I was like, there's a third place with the same name within this like area. It's just, what are you doing? Like, how?
Or they'll do it like this. The village name will be Shasliv. All right, Shasliv means happy, and then right beside it will be Nova Shasliv, which is new happy, and then beside that'll be Nova Shasliv, which is new happy, and they just
and maybe like Veliku Shasliv, which is be like greater happy. Yeah,
that's right, exactly.
Just a couple more before we go back to the map. Party Putin is asking what to do with the other 12%. So he got 88% of votes, supposedly. Anyone else realize that the hidden meaning behind 88? So, of course, if you know your Nazi kind of culture, then Adolf Hitler, the 8th letter is H, I believe. And so that's it. It's Heil Hitler. So if you have people with 88 tattooed on them, it's just a dead giveaway as to what they think. So 88 is a big fascist number. Well, yeah, it's a number he's chosen, obviously, for his election. So there you go. But thank you, Paul Gilbert, as well, for your generosity there. And just 2 more before we go on. Niels Clement, I've donated $100 yesterday and are a little soft, so 100 more today. Thanks, Niels. You're an absolute ledge. Now I'm broke, but he's done that via Bethel Live, so that's really good news there. And just here, someone said, Johnny, everyone should. Oh no, that wasn't what I was going to say. But actually, everyone should watch the speech by President Macron. It was an absolutely barnstorming interview that he gave. He put down the interviewers with their kind of not great, not nice questions, and he was so strong in support of Ukraine that it's just amazing. But Mitch Mazarol, for the team effort, some geopolitical hypothetical here. If the US leaves NATO, should the remaining members and the EU also consider sanctions on the US for an arguably passive, permissive approach to Russia's aggression? So actions should have consequences, should they not? Go for it, Darren.
Okay, so this is kind of silly. people think that Trump can do far more than he can do. We have a constitutional republic built on your constitutional republic, and then adding layers to that, right? I mean, what you worked out in the British Constitution from the Magna Carta till 1776, we basically plagiarized and then added layers to it. Trump can't do, like, he can't in and of himself remove us from NATO. He can't do this. He can't do that. Like, people say, well, what if Trump does this? What if Trump does? Like, he's limited. Like, the president is perhaps the most powerful man on earth, but only within certain restrictions. People were asking, what if you remove this amendment? You can't. You need a supermajority of the House and the Senate in order to remove an amendment. What are you talking about? So people need to, like, there's enough problems in the world as there are to not worry about phantom menaces. So
I do. There are some people who say that what he can do would be to get the right people in charge of the DOD for his point of view, and commanders in chief and whatnot, and not fulfill the requirements of NATO. So rather than unilaterally remove the US from NATO, he could do things that effectively make the US not a very good colleague member of NATO, and that's what some people are suggesting.
He could restrict some things.
Whether he would, I don't
know. In the same way that Mike Johnson, people keep asking, how can one man have that much power? He's basically like the prime minister. I mean, that's the Speaker of the House's kind of power. I mean, get that equivalent in your mind. And so there is a reasonable power to set the agenda, so he can restrict things. Trump could restrict certain things, but he can't unilaterally. Like, our system is geared, it's designed not to work. It's designed for gridlock. It's designed to keep any one person from being able to run roughshod over everybody else.
Apart from when it comes to the majority speaker of the House of Representatives.
No. But that's still part of the design, because he still has the will of the majority by the Republicans. See, you're only looking at it through the lens of just Ukraine. The majority is still behind him. Even if half of them are holding their nose or going like, come on, man, let's, right? He still has the majority's will. So that's
this is hence the development of the discharge petition to try and get around.
So you can get a majority to force him to do that. And that's still the will of the majority. So but the design, the system is not designed to work effectively or efficiently. It's designed to prevent tyranny.
And actually, Congress passed a bill or some kind of something recently within the last year, I think it was, that would stop him being able to unilaterally take the US out of NATO. So there is a check and balance that has most recently been applied. I really do appreciate that, Mitch. Thank you very much. And I am worried. I'm as worried as anyone about a potential Trump presidency. That everyone on my channel.
Can I ask a question here? I'm a Ronald Reagan Republican, as my colleague is, but I'm also kind of out there a little bit because I think I'm Johnny's starting to rub off on me. You're right around the front line with Johnny, and all of a sudden I feel myself leaning. The truck was just leaning left the whole time. I'm sitting here. We had Johnny actually sitting on the left side of the truck on purpose.
They had to service it afterwards. Seriously, we're taking him for a political servicing.
Seriously, here's a question I have for you, Dr. Gertis. Okay. So Trump is not the elected president of the United States. Now, he is a former president, and he's running for the election in November 2024. However, the prime minister of Hungary comes and meets with him, and other world leaders are wanting to meet with him. It's almost like, I know he's not the president, but the world looks at that and goes, okay, he's really pulling the strings. And then I have a hypothetical question. Is he manipulating behind the scenes to stall or block Ukraine support? I'm just asking some questions there.
Yeah,
does he have that?
Any of us can actually know that.
Okay,
I mean, who can tell? But that certainly seems like bad form to be doing that. Like, remember what happened to Michael Flynn? He was talking to somebody who was on the Russian side saying, hey, wait, we're going to be in office in a little bit. So, right, that it was just a little conversation, but you weren't actually in power yet. And that's what, like, so this seems like that kind of thing, but we don't know. Nobody knows what was said, but it's bad. So I want to horrify you for just a moment. Okay. You might want to grab some antacid or something before I say what I'm about to say. It hit me out of the blue the other day, just 3 days ago. Okay. So Trump, like people are like, oh no, what if Trump wins? What if Trump loses? I'm not saying I want him to win. What if he loses? And then there's another 4 years of Trump being Trump, campaigning for 4 years between there and when he's 81. And we know that 81 is not too young.
So I think, okay, you've got to understand this is coming from my own political persuasion here. But I think in order to kill off a MAGA movement, MAGA would have to be significantly beaten at the polls in 2024 in November. And so if there's a close race here, then there's a real risk of that happening. But there needs to be a really strong repudiation of that kind of movement, that thinking, because if there isn't, then I think the Republican Party gets split, and that's a problem for the Republican Party going forward. I think, you've almost got two parties that need to start, but then neither one would ever win in a head-to-head with the Democrats. So, I think personally that you need to have a very successful Democrat trifecta to and a big margin to put that movement down.
You're right about that, but I don't think the split's going to work, and I think that's because it's coming.
I'm not sure it's going to work, but
I'm saying I don't think a split's going to happen because within our system, that's winner take all. You have two parties because that gives them the best possible chance of being able to win, and a split party is almost guaranteeing that you're.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that was what I went on to say. That then they wouldn't win against a head-to-head.
That's just the reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have the McCain clip?
Yes. So sorry, I had that. I have that ready.
Let me set it up.
Do you want to play it all?
Just the first 2 minutes. I'll tell you where to stop.
Okay.
First 2 minutes. You'll hear McCain he get to the place where he'll just say he's embarrassed or something like that. Yeah. But let me set it up because I was putting this video together today talking about MAGA Republicans versus Ronald Reagan Republicans, right? I'm a Reagan Republican, and Reagan would be turning in his grave watching what we're doing, right? There's just two different things. Now, this goes back 10 years to when McCain's talking about what's happening in 2014. 2014. Can you believe that? So watch what he has to say on the floor. It's just like a minute or two. Let's just see that.
Right now, as we speak, Vladimir Putin is either planning on or contemplating an invasion of eastern Ukraine. Incredibly, there will be an objection from this side to this legislation when the people of Ukraine are crying out for our help and our assistance. My friend Senator Barrasso will now be proposing the House amendment that has not one single sanction in it. What has happened? Where are our priorities? Is the IMF, no matter whether it's fixed or not fixed with this legislation, more important than the lives of thousands of people? Is that what we're talking about here? I will say to my friends who are objecting to this, and there are a number of them on my side, you can call yourself Republicans. That's fine, because that's your voter registration. Don't call yourself Reagan Republicans. Ronald Reagan would never go let this kind of aggression go unresponded to by the American people. And I've been embarrassed before on the floor of the Senate, I will tell the president, but I haven't been embarrassed this way about members of my own party. One of the most proudest aspects I've always felt of our Republican Party and the leadership of Ronald Reagan and others is we stood up for people.
We are now faced.
You can stop there. That's fine. So
I've shown that before. It's such a good speech.
It was remarkable just seeing the difference. And this is how I still think this is how everyone that I like, my closest kind of set of friends, this is how we think. And we're looking at MAGA going how could you think it's okay for Russia to do this? It's not, it doesn't even compute. Greg, what do you think?
I completely agree. It's sound thinking. We get back to the human equation. And for me, it's whether it's Republican, Democrat, left, right, Mars, Jupiter, or anywhere in between. The bottom line is people are being wiped off the planet right here beside me where I'm at right now. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if that's okay for anybody, then you have a problem. Mm-hmm. No matter where you're from, what country you're from, what language you speak, what political affiliation, it doesn't matter. If you can't recognize that, And of course, that's the war of the propaganda that comes out of the Kremlin trying to negate that. Okay, that's the battle back. But the reality is, guys, I'm here. Okay, today I drove past thousands of buildings that are leveled. So
Yeah,
if,
in fact,
if that's okay, then we're completely out of order as human beings who have at least some moral mandate for what's right.
Yeah, talking about leveled places. So if we go back to the map and have a little think about what's going on in the northern areas,
What a great
number
segue,
of places.
JP.
Hey, you know, but only there's a leveled village. So we've got the Tetkino area. I'm not sure what's going on there at the moment. That's in the Kursk Oblast, and then it
That's up
seems to
north
be
of
more.
Sumy.
Yeah, and then it seems to be a lot more about what's happening at the moment in Belgrade. We've had Belgrade being hit by rockets or air defense trying to shoot down rockets. We have Griveron and a place called Kazinka here, which the claim is that Kazinka is under the control of the Siberian Battalion. Limited Special Operation of Volunteer Forces of the Territory of the Russian Federation continues. Flags of the Siberian Battalion and the Russian Volunteer Corps in the village of Kazinka in the Russian Federation. So there is that. Then there's also claim that the village of Gorkovsky is under the control of these Freedom of Russia Legion fighters as well, and that's in Belgrade Oblast. So there's a number of places where this is happening, so on and so forth. I just want to go to now. Where is it? Where it is actually in Kazinka. So where was I? Kazinka.
Velika Pisarivka.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
It's to your left.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah.
It's right there.
So
okay,
Velika Pisarivka has been hit today. Let me just find that. No. Where was it? Here it is. So Russian Nazis, and then I'll give it over to you, Greg. Today shelled the center of the village of Velika Pisarivka in the Sumy region. The occupiers bombarded the border areas every day with carbs and FABs, the guided glide bombs, and also hit with artillery. The video shows footage of the evacuation of residents from the village of Lugovka in the Sumy region and the sounds of the cannonade. The destroyed bridge seen in the video is bombed by a Russian missile strike. So there's lots of damage and destruction going on in this general area.
So let me just tell you guys, this is basically fresh news. That village no longer exists. It's gone. And it was done through bombing. And we're not going to get into a technical analysis here, but it doesn't take rocket science to know that when you do incursions, which you have a right to do, okay, and even the Siberian or the Freedom Russia, whatever, if you do not think that the Russian military is going to respond in a certain way, then you need to reevaluate your understanding of this war. So I am completely convinced that that's just a response to some of these incursions here. Guys, that village is gone. Today, 256 adults and 26 children had to be evacuated. That is not artillery only. That's not just some random missile. They bombed it into oblivion. If you were to go straight down south, let me show you one more, Johnny. Go straight down south on the map. I just want people to understand. Go all the way to Kherson. Zoom in on Kherson on me. Now, go up to Mykolaiv on that road right there. Now come down that road right there. Zoom in, and you're going to see Posad Pokrovsk.
Yeah, I think I drove past that a number of times.
You did. Right up there, top of your screen, Posad Pokrovsk. Yep. Zoom into that just so people can see the size of it. Okay, 3,000 people. Guys, this village looks like World War II movies of bombings that you would see when the thousands of bombs were being dropped out of these heavy bombers. That village, 3,000 people, leveled by bombing.
Is that the place with a lot of blue tarpaulins?
That's exactly right. They're starting to try to rebuild it, but it was leveled. Zhenya and I were in there right after this was liberated, and Ukraine was pushing back. And guys, the devastation, it's indescribable. So it's just, once again, we're back to that human factor of the war, just like John McCain was saying. These are people. These are people.
So the question
And
is, for that northern area, is, well, because lots of people have been casting their opinions on this. I know Andrew Perpetua, whose mapping and data sets I heavily rely on, and I think does gargantuan work. He got in a bit of, not necessarily hot water, but a lot of people disagreed with him because he sounded off on Twitter about this being a really bad decision of the Ukrainians to, even though it's a Russian fighters and they are kind of have more of a mind of their own, they are using equipment that has been given to them by the Ukrainian army, right? So they haven't just picked up this kit from nowhere. So this will be in conjunction in some way with the Ukrainians. Now he looks at every bit of footage you'll ever see, and so he, more than anyone I know, will have an idea of how many people are dying, what equipment it's getting lost, and then from that say, what are they doing this for? Like, this seems to be a gratuitous like waste of equipment and effort and men. But then other people are like, I'm not so sure, because I don't know what the intentions are. I don't know that they're seriously going to be trying to take parts of Russia, right? That is more about the elections. It's more about the PR. And you can argue that's a waste of people for PR. But actually, you know, these are guys that are trying to unseat the kind of arrogance of Putin in terms of his election. And so there are other ways of measuring success here, and some of them are unmeasurable, right? So we can't see the effect on morale. We can't see the kind of PR effect. So it's difficult, is what I don't know whether this is worthwhile doing or not, because I don't know all the details.
So even if it wasn't during the election, if it was just a regular day, it's an average Thursday, it's still a good thing to mess with the psyche of like, whoa, what do we have to adjust? Just like, and this is even more important, the strikes on the oil refineries, which are they've hit at least a dozen in the last week or two, right? And by my calculation, and I heard Starsky say 20%, by my calculation, you're at least at 10%. You're at least somewhere between 10 and 17% as of 2 days ago of Russian oil refining capacity is shot.
Temporarily, the number we hear here is 12.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. The number we're hearing inside Ukraine is 12% taken out.
So my calculation was 10 to 17%. Starsky said 20 today. There was another refinery. So I don't know if he's, maybe a little more liberal, but nonetheless, that's having a tremendous effect. And to the degree that they can do more of that and have to eventually move air protection around oil refineries instead of in Ukraine, that's remarkable. I'm not sure that you're having the same effect with the ground incursions, but it's still going to play with their minds.
I think to defend what the Free Russian fighters are doing, I don't think you can expect them so much to go and fight down on the front lines in Ukraine, as much as that's kind of not their remit. But the question is has what they've done resulted in losses that are not worth it, and also these recriminations that Greg is talking about on Ukrainian villages, and are places getting hammered as a result of what they've done, and does that need to be factored into understanding whether it's worth it or not? I don't know.
I don't either, but it at least, listen, it's so much more complex than we can understand. We just try to understand it the best we can. It's like Dr. Gertis said, there's definitely benefits to it. You have the morale side of it. You have the intimidation factor. You have the election cycle. You have all of these things that are happening. And then, of course, the refinery strikes are massive. And it's equal to Ukraine dominating in the Black Sea without really even having a navy. I mean, it's amazing. Incredible. These are wonderful things. But how do you weigh that and evaluate that when Ukraine is so limited on resources and soldiers? And that's out of my expertise, but at least has to be thought about.
Just another round of thank yous. Danny Carver giving another 5 Greg Terry Experience memberships.
Thank you, Danny Carver. And also, Johnny, there was some messaging on my side that said some of your guys, like John Larkin or others that are usually in your chat, said they were unable to chat or do something. So I know JR's working on the backside, but
Yeah,
I'm
I
passing
think
the
there's
message
been
to
some
you.
moderating issues going on, so sorry about that,
Okay.
and I'll look into that. LWD Farm, member for a month, says thank you, Greg Terry Experience, and everyone else. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And King Dog, one of yours as well.
King Dog.
Super sticker. That's very kind. Stephen Bendel, great chat, guys. Some Norwegian love. Slava Ukraini. Thank you, Stephen. He's such an amazing supporter of the channel, by the way, Stephen. So, as are all of you. So, Sean Lindsay here. Hi, I just watched a British guy serving in Ukraine. He was saying that he hears a few F-16s are in Ukraine now, and Ukraine don't want to advertise this. Has Greg heard this? Keep up the great work, guys.
As far as I know, they're not here yet because the infrastructure is not in place.
They're not supposed to be there for 2 months.
Yeah.
I mean,
listen. Oh, here's what I can tell you: the airports are not ready yet. So how can they be here? So
but Tom Cruise proved in Maverick that he only needs the runway, not the real runway, but the little side runway thing in order to get those up in the air. So there's that.
So I mean,
maybe we should just build some Scientology churches.
I'm not an authority on it. And today I actually drove past a I'll get the coordinates for it, Johnny and Dr. Gerdes, and show it to you guys. And I mean, it's public knowledge, but we're on a road that's also designed as a backup military airfield.
Yeah.
And they got all the infrastructure in place there. And it's in several places in Ukraine, like in many nations. We have them in the United States. I mean, it's simple. But could an F-16 land on that? Absolutely. It was an incredible runway, but it's not so much that as all the other infrastructure that has to be here. Am I saying that an F-16 has not touched down on air bases? They have touched down on air bases. I already know that for a fact. But are they here right now? No.
Mr. Lion Dust, one of yours. So thank you for that super sticker, Mr. Lion Dust. Paul Gilbert, 5 ATP Geopolitics memberships, really kind. Tanya Rindenko, super sticker from Canada. Thank you so much. And then really appreciate that, Tanya. Great supporter. And then Vigo, who's such an awesome supporter of the channel in terms of everything really. Always giving really good comments every single day. I put it to good use. And then that's not calling me a beast. That means that he's put a emoticon there. But Vigo with some Norwegian love. Really, really appreciate that. We're going to put this all to good use. And then just a few more before we get onto one of the later things I want to say. So 5 Greg Terry Experience memberships from LWD Farm
LWD
as well.
Farm, that's Canada.
Awesome stuff. And then indeed 5 more as well, by the way. So there's 2 lots of 5.
Thank you. Awesome.
And Eubanks DVDs, great support as well. Keep up the great work, JP, Darren, and Greg. Really appreciate that. And yeah, we'll go on to the other ones in a wee while.
Hey, can you grab that comment from Melanie Reed there? So she used to work on F-16s, and see that's a part of the issue right there, guys. And I didn't, of course, but I trust her. She's always in the chats and very knowledgeable, a good chatter.
Yeah,
she says they're vacuum cleaners, and you have to have a very clean runway.
Yes.
I worked in an F-16 squadron. Okay, that's who we need to listen to. And
yeah,
so
part of the problem with F-16s is that their intake for air means that they pick up a lot of what's called FOD, or foreign object debris, and in sucking that up, it obviously is going to cause havoc. So you need very clean runways. And something like the Gripen, for example, this is why people keep talking about the Gripen, the Swedish fighter. They don't have that same air take, and they can take off from a much shorter runway, like a road. They've been designed to fly from like Swedish roads, so they don't suck up the FOD, and they can be operated from more places. They are cheaper to fly in terms of the amount of money you have to spend per flight hour, and also they have a smaller footprint in terms of the maintenance crew. So like ideally Gripens would have been the ultimate thing to have a shed load of. They just don't have that many of them, and the logistics therefore chains would be much more difficult to come by. They also fire the Meteor missile, which would be exactly what Ukraine wants. So unfortunately the Gripen is like the second choice. I have a feeling they are being trained on them, and you will see Gripens, and it is happening under the radar, so to speak. But yeah, it's certainly true about the FOD with the F-16s. What I wanted to just talk about, as I guess we meander somewhat towards a conclusion, is just a couple of bits of news today. One is, again, this is going to the northern border, and this would be pretty controversial if true. Now, I don't think this is true. A little earlier today, Russia published these two videos claiming they'd shot down a US-made UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter. So this is doing the rounds at the moment. They say up to 20 Ukraine military personnel were on board, and it was hit in Lukashivka in the Chernihiv region. Now, it does appear that this has happened, but I think it's been retracted by some people claiming it's not actually they're not actually Black Hawk. So if Ukraine does have at least one Black Hawk helicopter, they use it or them for their special forces. And that will be a sore loss. But I think there are claims that it's a similar paint job to the Black Hawk, but also you've got some Me helicopters have that paint job. And I think that, as it says here, Russian sources are now claiming that helicopters were Me-24 Hind attack helicopter with the Ukrainian ground forces, and that it was down by elements of the 138th Guards Motorized Rifle Brigade along the border. Either way, that's a bad loss for the Ukrainians to have lost a helicopter, and that could be involved in those incursions going across the border. I don't know. Or maybe not, but that could be another thing to throw into the evaluation. And then in other helicopter news, this has happened, and this has caused an awful lot of consternation. So this is in Transnistria, which is the kind of quasi-annexed region of Moldova, which now there is this footage that's coming out of. I mean, this has happened, right? A drone has gone and hit a helicopter. But as you can see from that helicopter, it's actually got a broken window already. Apparently, this is covered in kind of moss, I think. It hasn't been used for 20 years. It literally has not been flown for 20 years. And there's satellite imagery to prove that it's been in place for that long. And so what's going on here? I know that Tochny has just done a video on this, probably released just before we went live. So I haven't seen it, but someone's told me that I think Thierry has just told me that they've just released a video debunking this as being the Ukrainians doing that, I presume. So
some are speculating it's false flag. They have a tremendous angle on that helicopter. Did they have it all this time, or was it just like I'm skeptical of video when it's too clear? Like, why would somebody have had that image?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
And
like when it's wheeling around, going, "Oh my god, look at this!"
There's footage of that from several angles, I do believe now, and it's HD footage as well. So, like, a helicopter hasn't moved for 20 years. Why do you have video camera HD imagery of that just sitting there with a broken window? And it gets hit with a drone, and of course, it makes so much sense that if the Russians are going to think, right, what can we blow up that we blame on the Ukrainians that allow us to then do some funky stuff in Transnistria because the Ukrainians are threatening us? And that's a
double-edged sword, because you got the largest stockpile of artillery shells anywhere in that region in Moldova.
Yeah,
and that could go very wrong for the Russians in Moldova if the Ukrainians get involved. So
yeah, it is playing with fire. And the Ukrainians would absolutely love a bunch of that equipment that the Russians have there, and it would be relatively easy for them to get if they really tried hard, because there's maybe 1,500 Russian soldiers there, but I doubt they're like exactly crack, and they're like, if push came to shove, I think it would be interesting.
So I can tell you right now, I'm checking from my guys right now, and unless it's debunked on some guys I really trust, Ukraine taking credit for it.
Oh, is that right?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I stand corrected. I'm not correct. I'm not correcting you at all. I'm just saying that we have to wait for these things to filter out. Yeah.
So
I would be.
I'm just saying that it looks a little bit too.
But consequences. Yes. So we'll see.
I'd be really surprised at that. I'm not calling that into question necessarily, but
Ukraine should take the base and give the land back to Moldova. No, what Ukraine should do is take the base and take all the munitions.
Yeah.
Let Moldova have the land after they get the munitions. We just want the stuff on it.
I've been there. I've been in Moldova so many times. I love Moldova. People there are good. But that Transnistria region in Tiraspol, the capital there, is you literally move to about 1975 Soviet Union in Transnistria. No question.
So it's like a Cuba effect.
It is. It's the weirdest place. Are there really pro-Russian people there? Absolutely, 100%. So it's interesting. And so that could, yeah, kind of interesting. That happens on the same day that Putin's elected.
Yeah, interesting. Right, just a few more people to
Hey,
thank.
that could be our big triggering event.
Yeah, look at the prophet already speaking down there. The prophet of Pluto, not God. The prophet of Pluto. I've got it, Johnny. I've got it straight.
Daniel Westlund here from Sweden. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Incredibly generous people. John Abraham, super sticker. Honestly, Daniel, it's super generous of you. Remy Stevens, 50 Canadian dollars here. Great work, gentlemen. I hope this helps somebody in Ukraine. Absolutely, definitely. I'm going to be really interested to see how much is raised tonight. When will you know, Greg?
I'm making a call now, y'all.
Oh, ledge. And then we'll have to add some from here as well, but it is a ballpark figure anyway. From my state pension, Harry O, keep it going, everyone. It's our only choice. Thank you, Harry O, and thank you for deciding to do that. That's really, really generous of you. Jamie Snow, member for 2 months. Wish I could give money. I give when I can. Thank you, Jamie, for the kind thoughts, though. And Rob, this is incredible, Rob. £99.99, 100 quid there. Thanks, Rob. You are an officer and a gentleman. Really appreciate the generosity from all of the people today. It's been quite incredible.
So I'm not co-streaming, but immediately after this, I'll swipe your video, put it online so that a whole new group can see it if they haven't been able to see it before. So hopefully that'll inflate the numbers even further.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah, good on you for doing that. Anything from you, Greg?
I'll get some numbers in just a couple of minutes.
Well, I have from JR, we have about 5,800 at the moment. That's what he's totted up.
Have
that'd be amazing.
Well, we're definitely over 6K then, because I've had, I think 4 or 5 donate specifically for this fundraiser tonight through Buy Me a Coffee.
Amazing.
I'll check that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing news. So thank you to everyone who has done that. Now, someone was asking about Krinky, because I didn't get quite so far as the Kherson area. I have heard nothing from Krinky over the last, well, actually really anything significant for the last few days. There was talk about the Russians maybe amassing some forces again to push from the northeast and push the Ukrainians down there. As far as I understand it, still there is only 1 out of the 4 original battalions, still the brigades still there, which means that they aren't crazy serious about expanding territorial control around that area, and it's more about fixing the Russian troops and equipment in situ, and then attriting them with drones and artillery and whatnot. So I guess that's still happening. The ISW says that there's. I mean, I expressed what the ISW said last night. They hadn't brought out their new report, and it's again, no changes there. So I guess we just wait and see if anything different happens there. But I can't see that the Ukrainians have the ability to expand that beyond anything that's there.
They don't have to necessarily have the ability to expand that. This is just like what we were talking about the Free Russia Legion, right? There's a psychological impact here that's all out of proportion for the number of people there. Tell me if I'm wrong, Greg. What do you see?
No, there is. And Johnny and I discuss this quite often.
Yeah.
There is the psychological impact. There is the amount of material that Russia has to push on that area.
They have lost a ton of it there.
And
so
they've
it's
lost
not just
a ton of guys.
Tangible.
I always come back to this. I play a little devil's advocate here because I know all of those points are valid. My only point is being here, being on the front lines. I know what, and I share it with you guys, what the real story is about Ukrainian soldiers. They're heroes, but they're tired, and we need more. So I just have an issue sometimes with maybe, and I'm not the one to answer it, but what is the value gained versus the value given for Krinky or Robitny? So I don't know the answer to that. So I think all of our viewpoints have validity to them.
My theory has long been here that it's consequentialist moral ethics here. So, and unfortunately, that's not great for the people who are being sacrificed. But essentially,
excuse me, Dr. Gertis, can you interpret that for me? I have no idea what he just said.
Basically, you'll know this.
Basically, that the morality of the thing is based on the outcomes.
Yeah, so this is a greater good, So this is employed, I would argue, a lot in the Bible, although Christians generally don't like moral consequentialism because you don't need God for the morality, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. However, for the greater good literally is a moral consequentialist technique, right, or method. So what you have here...
I'm sorry. So you just think in terms of Saving Private Ryan. Was it Saving Private Ryan where they were talking about like every dead German gets me one step closer to home?
Yeah, but
right?
yeah,
I mean,
I think
that's part of this as well.
Yeah. So what they've done here, I think, from the larger zoomed out perspective, is that they are essentially using Ukrainian soldiers to bait the Russians in. That's the psychological element, which means that we've got to get them off this side of the river. And so they're throwing troops and equipment here into this whole area. And then Magyar's birds and the artillery and whatnot and other drone units as well are absolutely hammering the equipment and personnel here. So the Russians have definitely lost, like visually confirmed lost, like several hundred bits of kit around here and a shed load of people. And so there were only 200 to 300, probably less now, actually fewer people there now, but relatively few people with no equipment and no real hope of expanding because you can't get equipment across there easily. And they're successfully causing the Russians to lose an awful lot of stuff. And that's not cool if you're the person being sacrificed there. But sometimes generals have to make decisions that might not make sense to the person on the ground, and it might look like it's a suicide mission. So therefore you get these newspaper articles written by the New York Times or whatever, where they're interviewing some of these people coming back from the other side saying, well, it's a suicide mission. Well, in a sense, it kind of is actually, but and it sounds harsh, but you are the person that's being used as a means to an end here. That's how I read that. And the way you evaluate that is literally like, well, how many Ukrainians are being lost and how many Russians are being lost. It's a ratio thing.
Vitaly, privyet. And yeah, I'm just reading the comments where you guys are talking about that, and it's just it's been really good stream. And I'm just seeing right there, like Ronnie Franken says, just great chemistry, three amigos, and that's exactly right, three friends, and this is beautiful. This is beautiful. I can tell you, our number is right now $5,900 has come in during the last 90 minutes. And additionally, I know there's 600 on my site. So you're at just through regular donations like Buy Me a Coffee. So we're at 6,500.
And I'll be giving, I'm sure we'll be like over $7 grand and whatnot.
Okay. So $7 grand puts us at 140, guys. We're at 140 in 6 days. So unbelievable. Thank you. We're going to make it. We're going to make it.
Yeah. What are we aiming for? I don't even know what's the
200K.
Right,
200K gets them to the front line. Done.
Brilliant. So that's at least some of these snatches going. It's just the question is how many, right? I guess.
No, well, this is for 3 of them. 3 of them fully equipped, fully loaded, everything gone right to the front lines, put on position, fueled up and ready to roll. So, listen, if everybody will just do their part, we'll make a difference. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping, and I know that my political understanding is way behind both of your guys. I'm just a redneck, but I'm just believing that if enough groundswell support like we are experiencing through all of these wonderful communities, and there's more than ours, Rick's streaming right now. We have other partners everywhere working together. I just believe and I hope that when people around the world make powerful statements like this that that nations begin to listen. That's my hope.
As a few questions and things to go through. The real Dave Seaman. I think this is reference to the England goalie Dave Seaman. So this guy's saying, "I'm the real Dave Seaman." He's a very famous England goalie for our football team. Can't remember the last time I donated to a church. Laughy face there. Now that's really cool because actually this is important for me to say this as a secular person that that this money is going, like, if you were ever worried, like it is the money that goes to Greg and the BLWC, so Bethel Life Worship Church, goes to if you're worried about stuff like that, it goes to stuff on the front line. Like that's what's happening with this at the moment. There's not, as far as I understand it, there's not some big proselytizing thing that's taking place. This is money that goes to the front, and it's really transparent, and Greg shows it being delivered.
Period.
Yeah. So I just thought that's a good opportunity to say that in case anyone was wondering about that.
We're just the highway, guys.
Yeah. Greg, and this is really important, and a few people weighed in on this. Greg, do Russians have any respect for medical vehicles? Is that not another war crime? They used GPS coordinates. They got off hospitals for fire practice in Syria. So no, well, that's what they did in Syria, and supposedly doing that in Ukraine. And the regular, no, not that one. There was another one. Here it is. I've heard from a few sources that Russians target them. The same happened in Syria. Red Medical Cross is a target for Russians.
Guys, they target anything. There is nothing. Okay. They're trying to wipe these people off the map over there. Yeah. Right where I'm at. So everything is fair game.
Yeah, and that's a mentality too. That's what you have to wrap your
back
mind
to
around.
back to the mentality. Yes.
I mean, you look at the form in Syria. So it was either the International Red Cross or Amnesty International, or maybe all of them. They provided Russia with the coordinates of a whole bunch of hospitals and said, please do not hit these hospitals. And Russia took the coordinates. And this is established fact. This isn't like speculation, or this isn't conspiracy theory. They took the coordinates and they bombed the hospitals. They're like, thank you very much for giving us those targets. Now we're going to bomb them. And it's part of how you destroy the spine, the
Hold on. I'm sorry. R.C. William, put that quote up there.
So I'm looking at a different bunch of quotes.
About 5 or 6 up. I just need to answer this.
Oops, no, that one keeps moving.
Why isn't the church donating to Ukraine for rescue vehicles? R.C., thank you for that question. I just want you to know that if you were to combine our church's effort, when I had 4 people watching me before Johnny and Dr. Gertis took a chance on me, and then everything started to explode and all of these things started to come together, our church donated $250,000 to Ukraine effort. We were doing it on our own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so if you take that with what we've come together now with all these communities, we're pushing $500,000, man. And I have a staff there that works and does all of this for free. There's no admin. There's nobody taking a salary. They're there serving Ukraine. This is the golden egg to help Ukraine.
And I love this from the real Dave Seaman again. The regular donations are cool too, but I love these kind of concrete projects. We just need growth, and we'll get them whatever they need for a tenner each. And indeed, that's true. So thank you very much. So just a few more kind donations here. John Larkin, back and wombling. That's in reference to a word that's from the kind of urban slang of the UK. When you call someone a cockwomble, it's just something we say occasionally, which is just kind of an idiot. But anyway, he likes that word, and so do I. Jeroen Rolus, which is JR, so this is JR, and that's how you pronounce Jeroen. It's not Jeroen, it's Jeroen, I've found out recently, as some Dutch person told me, corrected me quite correctly. Any ending thoughts on Musk and the use of chemical weapons? Don't get me started on Musk. I will.
You wanted to use chemical weapons on Musk? Is that what they're asking here?
Actually, I would.
I don't know that you should be talking like that. That's not
Look
nice.
at Gertis going military on us. Awesome.
I'm just saying that's not a polite thing to be talking about.
There are these claims that the Russians have upped their use of chemical weapons. Of course, the chemical weapons is a big umbrella term for a number of things, including things like CS gas. So and I don't know if both sides have done this, but certainly we have heard that Russians have used CS gas to drop into trenches and dugouts that then flush out people, and then you drop munitions on them. So that's a technique. Now
we are hearing more of that here in Ukraine. That more chemical weapons are being used.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is probably not the time, but I have talked about this before. It's odd. Chemical weapons, and this is where I get a bit philosophical. Chemical weapons are a bit of a false distinction, in my opinion. And now let's move out from the emotions of this. But actually, what you're saying is like, I don't like this way of killing someone. I prefer this way of killing someone. And so we talk about how terrible chemical weapons are. But the question is, would you prefer to live with like burnt skin, or would you prefer to be dead because you've had your head blown off? And it's like, because being dead with your head blown off is what happens if a shell lands on you, but having your skin burnt but being alive is what happens when you've got chemical weapons. So
No,
what would you prefer?
no,
And
they were
like,
killing them with it. So they were saying this is so barbaric. When you're sitting around with clear heads, not at war, you go, this is probably a bad idea. We don't want it to happen to our people. You don't want it to happen to your people. Okay, let's not do that. But then they do that. So
yeah, but it's the idea that like you could just say, like for example, the thermobaric, the TOS-1A thermobaric munition that vaporizes humans is like, that's absolutely horrific, but that's fine. And yet, this mustard gas is not fine. And you're like, can we really make that distinction? And I'm not justifying at all, like, chemical weapons, of course. I'm just saying that there's an interesting philosophical discussion to say that it's a bit of a false distinction, that it's okay to kill, like it's okay to blow someone's head off, like literally blow someone's head off is fine. Like there's not a law against that, but to use a gas is no. And I just find that's an interesting discussion. It's an interesting distinction to have, and I think it's somewhat arbitrary. You might then talk about using something that's designed to cause chronic over time, chronic impairment, as opposed to killing someone outright, is more cruel or something like that. I don't know, but
yeah, somebody just mentioned Agent Orange in the chat, and that's something like that might be just as vicious in a long-term sense. Anyway,
but the question still is, would you prefer to be like impaired long-term or killed? Like,
Johnny, what's terrible though is that you and Professor Gertis and I sit here and have this conversation in 2024. That's what's horrible.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
We shouldn't be having weapons at all. Like, I mean, the pacifist in me says,
well, now,
like,
Johnny, listen,
it's horrible.
If I remember correctly, on the front lines, you brought home a Savage knife and you held a gun.
Yeah, but
no. Listen,
I held a gun.
All of you ATP. Listen, I know we're getting to the end now. We're over $7,000 for tonight's fundraising. It's been an awesome night. But listen, guys, Johnny held a gun in Ukraine. That's all I'm saying.
So this is called the paradox of tolerance, right? And this is a really interesting idea. So the paradox of tolerance is this idea that if you are so tolerant that you allow the intolerant, if you tolerate the intolerant, that you will be consumed by the intolerant. So, for example, if I'm like so kind of liberal or so tolerant of other people's differences, and like, oh no, you can't have a go at that like horrible fascist over there. Like I need to tolerate that fascist. Well, that fascist will then take advantage of my tolerance, and their intolerance would subsume me, and I would lose out. I wouldn't exist because. So this is called, Karl Popper, the philosopher, termed the paradox of tolerance, which is you can't be so tolerant that you tolerate the intolerant. So my position is liberalism with teeth. So you need to be tolerant up until there's a point where like it's really counterproductive to be tolerant of that. And so therefore I'm a liberal. I'm essentially a pacifist, unless there's a war, in which case, you need to arm the people who are being attacked. You need to fight against the aggressors.
As a Reagan conservative, I have no problem with weapons.
And I do have to say guilty as charged, because I see Pierre defending Johnny right now, saying, Greg, don't you remember riding around the front lines and then the bad drivers would come and you would say, I want to eliminate those people. and I had a way of saying it. So, okay, Pierre's taking up for you, Johnny.
I remember this very well. We had some great moments where, like,
yes, we did.
Great, like, I don't like. I'm the atheist here, but mate, what about your Christian forgiveness here? As he's like, man, am I gonna go?
Johnny.
Good times. Good times.
It
good
was
times.
good times.
So on
But
that
you know
note,
what? On that
Yeah.
note, but here's the truth, Dr. Gertis, and it, you know, we were talking on the phone the whole time when Johnny was here with us, guys. This is just an example of this is what humanity is supposed to be like, where we can discuss and give and take and learn from each other and not fight and say, okay, you have the right to think that way, and I respect you for it. And I'll be honest with you. I love Johnny Pierce, and if anybody was to mess with him, especially in Ukraine, he's got a whole army that's going to defend him because he came and we drug him around the front lines. And believe me, it's high respect for Johnny Pierce.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for that opportunity and experience. And hopefully, you know, we're you know, I am repaying that, you know, with what we're doing here and the aid that we're getting to the people who need it the most. Robert Lockhart, thank you very much for your super sticker. It's really very generous. Sean Lindsay, what is Elon doing about Russia using Starlink? My answer to that is probably not a lot, because he's saying even worse and worse things on a daily basis. Today, he was kind of defending an Austrian Nazi, like, and you're just thinking, where are you going? Who are you? Who's in your information space, mate? What is going on, Elon? So I have absolutely no faith that he's going to make anything like a correct decision regarding Ukraine going forward. I think he's a lost soul, even though I don't believe in souls. Stupidity in essence, with some Danish love there. I hope we get the cars very fast. Thank you, Stupidity in essence.
I'm really believing, guys, for a 30-day campaign, and we've raised all the money, and I know that Pastor Kent will be initiating this week the down payment and the purchase and the documents and all that. This is happening, and we just thank you tonight. You know, when it's all said and done, we're gonna raise over 7,000 tonight. We're gonna be at 140. We're getting there, guys. So thank you.
And last one at the moment, MH with some Canadian love there. Never thought I'd be united with Republicans on anything geopolitical, but here we are. Here's the good people. That's you two he's talking about. Here's the good people on all sides, Slava Ukraini. And actually, so Darren and myself were speaking in the green room before we came on about Trump, and he's just listened to Trump's Ohio speech, which was a fascinating smorgasbord of cringe. And also just worrisome stuff. But we don't have time to go down that route. But I think some people have been asking me to speak to Darren about republicanism and where it's at, and MAGA and Trump. And I think there's definitely a time for another conversation on that, Darren, if you're up for a co-stream.
Yeah, anytime you want to talk, we'll talk. No problem.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and whether your position has changed given what you've learned from the war. And
I've stayed right where I am. I mean, that's the issue. My party, like that person that just put this thing about, I never thought I'd agree with a Republican. How weird is it for me? I'm at odds with my own party, and I agree with the Democrats who are hawks when I'm a hawk, but they're supposed to be doves. But what happened?
Yeah, what's going on? Switcheroo. It's like, I don't get it.
That's the beauty of this group, though. That's the beauty of this group.
Yeah, and so we'll have that chat. When you talk about Trump, he's talking about a bloodbath if I lose. You know, there was some pretty interesting language, and I think what worried me most is just the fact that he would choose
that
to
wasn't
take
the one
out.
though. Hold on, I'm sorry. I know you're trying to wrap up, but that wasn't the one. When he was talking about a bloodbath, he was talking about it in context in economic terms. But the real quote that really got me was when he was talking about if I'm not elected, there won't be elections again, and he was trying to say like that Biden's going to outlaw him or something. I mean, like it was crazy, like really
delusion.
Like 10 minutes later in that.
The worst bit was just taking the mickey out of Zelensky. For me, it's like, here's a guy that's fighting, or he's not, you know, politically fighting for the existence of his nation, that is going around, you know, cap in hand, because he needs it for the nation to survive. Of course he's going to be doing that, and he just takes the mickey out of him for like being the best salesman, because whenever he goes, he comes out with 50-60 billion dollars. Well, actually he didn't. He went to America, and that's precisely what didn't happen. And so it's not only just wrong in that case, but also it's just, why would you take the mickey out of him and not call out someone like Putin? You've got a perfect opportunity with a captive audience to take them with you. So you guys are with me no matter what. I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and you would still vote for me, right? So you guys are a captive audience. by the way, Putin is a bad guy. He's a really terrible human being, and what he's doing is genocidal. Come with me on that. But he doesn't do that. He says, he takes a mickey out of Zelensky. I'm like, I'm sorry, mate. You're done with me. But there you go.
So here's the crazy thing. There's really no center to the guy. So he could theoretically, arbitrarily go, I don't like you, but now I don't like you.
I totally agree with you.
It is possible. I'm not saying
totally
it's going to happen. I'm just saying, like, he's got, like, his moral compass only points back at himself.
Yes.
Right.
So actually, oh God, I so much I want to say about this. So I totally agree with you, Darren. Like, he is an empty vessel that gets filled with whatever people around him say, but also with whatever makes him look good.
If people can convince him it's in his best interest, but we're going to have to save that for another conversation.
Yes. Just the example of that is, I think he had like 5 different positions on abortion before in 2016. And because he would say, because he doesn't actually have a position on it at all. Like, he just says whatever he thinks is the right thing to say to the right person. And so therefore he has no ideology. He has a few general positions, but generally he's quite vacuous on ideology. And therefore he could be convinced by the correct people around him to have the correct view on
that is now my leading hope. That's right.
Yeah. And I did a video saying that the one hope you've got is that the way you do it is if you say to him, if you will be the hero of saving Ukraine. It's like, if you are responsible for giving all the stuff to Ukraine, then you can be held up as this hero, and that will make you look really good. And that's the only hope.
We'll rename one of those villages Savovny or whatever, that we'll rename it Trumpville.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, brilliant stuff. Well, look, thank you so much to obviously both of you, but particularly to Greg for actually being in Ukraine and facilitating this and being the actual, you and Zhenya being the organization that is providing this aid, and we are just, Darren and I, in the background saying, here's some extra help.
We all have an equal part, guys, and that's the message that I put to everybody. Yeah, we're here, but man, I love this place, and I've been here for over half of my life working, and this is, it's like, for me, when I'm in Ukraine, guys, it's no different than me being in Pennsylvania. That's the truth. I know every road. I can speak the language. I know the stores. I don't need interpreters. I don't need anything. It's like I'm at home, to be quite honest. My family's been here so many times. It's second home. So for me, it's quite normal to be here. It's not like I'm on some mission or any of that. This is just normal, and I love this place. What is great is you guys jumping in and helping, pushing this out to the greater community. And what is the greatest thing is all of these people in this chat who and that will be watching this on demand later. That's the greatness, because I'm telling you, Ukrainian soldiers, especially on my channel, they may not understand a word, but they are watching the chat, and when they see the hearts and the blue and yellow flag and all this, it just encourages them. So apart from listening to us and listen to opinions, and of course, none of us know all the answers, but together we can kind of work on something and get some understanding to think about. But secondly, providing a platform where people of the world can come together from different backgrounds. That's what we're also trying to do. But thirdly, man, doing something that's bigger than ourselves. That's what's amazing about it. You can be sitting at your home today and think about the difference that we all are making together. And that's the most powerful moment. So thank you all.
Yeah, beautifully said. And yeah, I can't thank everyone in the live chat and all of you guys enough.
No,
and
it's so fast moving.
And I have to let you know that this will continue, of course. So it doesn't stop with the end of this video. Like the fundraising continues until the amount is reached, and we will be sticking this one out. This is so important. I also want to just give a special thanks to JR, who kind of prompted me to do this more formally and started the ball rolling, as he did last time we did this with his matching ones for the drones, and we raised an absolute ton for the drones as well, and that was fantastic. I think we've probably beaten that this time. JR can let me know that. But it's just fabulous. So thank you, JR, who is behind the scenes helping me out personally, and I have an awful lot to thank him for. Goodness me, I feel rubbish. Just I sent him a hoodie, one of the Ukraine aid hoodies that I had done for us, for me out in out there, Greg, and I sent him one of those the other day. It's like, please have this. Like, I just, thanks, JR. You're an absolute legend. So just wanted to personally say that.
So I'm comfortable to say, I see the questions there, guys. As of tonight, 11:55 p.m., March the 17th, 2024, in Ukraine, we're at $140,000 raised toward the $200,000 goal, which has happened in 6 days. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We're running the front lines hard. My videos are at different times and all of this. So expect another update or an encouraging word from either JP or Dr. Gertis tomorrow. I'll have some content up tomorrow. You never know. It may be live. It may not. I never know because of our situations, but definitely within the next 48 hours, you'll have your next update. So thank you.
Yeah, and just to, I think the last time we did this, we raised somewhere between $11,000 and $14,000, but that was after the event as well. So if people can still continue to give really generously after the event, we'll hope to beat that previous one and get those armored medical vehicles out to Ukraine. That would be superb.
Johnny, I don't want to extend this, and we'll let Dr. Gertis, and I'll stop talking, but my wife is in the chat, and she loves the British accent. Would you please drop like a, hello, Miss Holly, how are you doing, in the best Queen's English?
Hello, Holly, how are you doing? It's really good to have you on board. Honestly, big love to you, Holly. I have spoken to you on the phone from the battle bus somewhere in the middle of Ukraine. And I believe your folks as well, Greg. I've spoken
yes, you
to
have.
too. So,
thank you, Johnny.
Thanks,
I just got brownie points.
Thanks for lending this good chap to Ukraine for as long as you have.
I'd say hello too, but I just grew up in Jersey, and it doesn't sound nearly as cool as what he just said.
Darren,
well, thank you, everybody.
What are your final words for tonight?
Slava Ukraini.
Geruim Slava.
Geruim Slava.
Do Peremoga, until victory.
Yes, and that as well. That what he said. Anyway, thanks everybody. Thanks to you too. Take care, y'all. And that's a bit of American for those who couldn't understand my previous stuff. And I'll be with you tomorrow again as per usual. Take care. Toodle pips.
Good night.